Thankfully, Jack never listened to other people talking. He failed to understand the hidden meaning of Carlo's words and kept serving fruit to Sylvia. "I'm good," Sylvia said. "Mr. Kipling, for your safety, we need to put a few surveillance cameras and convert listening devices on your personal belongings that you'll bring to Paris." Jack nodded. "Please let us know if we've caused you any inconvenience," Sylvia reminded him. Jack shook his head. "You can go and rest now. We'll do the rest." Sylvia stood up. Jack stood up almost immediately. At first, Sylvia thought that he would go to work. However, he followed them when Mr. Maxwell guided the squad to his bedroom. Clyde and the others didn't say anything about it. After all, Jack had the right to know where the devices would be. As the devices were installed, Clyde talked to Jack about the security plan. However, after a long speech, he found that Jack wasn't listening at all. With no other choice, he asked Sylvia to repeat it to him. At lunchtime, the chef served some mouth-watering dishes, including spicy beef steak, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and vegetable stew. Sylvia was surprised by the decadent lunch. Jack seemed to have memorized what she said last time. While she was thinking, Jack handed her a note. "Do you like the food?" Sylvia nodded. Jack grinned. His eyes even glowed. "Just eat." Sylvia picked up her fork and started eating. She had too much fruit in the morning, so she only ate a little for lunch. The 3 male officers had quite a lot too. Jack didn't touch the meat, but sat quietly beside her, eating the beans and cabbage. Clyde felt very sorry for Jack. He couldn't help but say, "Sylvia, pick some meat for Mr. Kipling." "He doesn't eat meat." Once Sylvia explained, Jack turned to her and opened his delicate pink lips, waiting for her to feed him. Sylvia didn't know what to do. "Just feed him," said Clyde. Sylvia wanted to stomp her foot on Jack's. He always made her feel embarrassed. With anger, she picked a slice and put it into Jack's mouth. "Wait, Mr. Kipling can't eat spicy food," Mr. Maxwell said, but it was already too late. Jack closed his mouth and chewed the pork. In the next second, his entire face turned red and his eyes became watery. Soon, his lips turned red as well. This made him look even prettier than a girl. Looking at him, the others were stunned. "Just spit it out!" Sylvia was a little shocked too. Looking at the pitiful Jack, she really wanted to pet him. Jack shook his head. He wanted to find his pen, but the hot flavor in his mouth was torturing him. While gasping for air, he said, "You fed it to me. I don't want to spit it out." He swallowed the meat, then quickly stood up and walked to the bathroom. He had no idea that what he said to Sylvia made her want to look for a hole to crawl in. Alex snorted and said, "You said that he doesn't like you. Isn't that obvious enough?" Sylvia couldn't stand his gaze any longer, so she argued with him. "When did I say that he doesn't like me? You've been saying that to yourself the whole time. I just didn't like your disdainful attitude. Besides, what's so wrong with the fact that he likes me? I'm pretty and capable. Isn't that normal for guys to like me?" "You..." "All right, stop." Clyde glared at Alex, then said to him, "Sylvia is right. She's single and so is Mr. Kipling. No rule says they can't be together." After a short pause, he said to Sylvia in earnest, "You need to control yourself. Don't throw him into your bed." Did she look like such a horny person? Carlo nodded his head meaningfully. "I just nearly turned gay when I saw him just now." No, her colleagues were too dirty. "I'm done. You guys go ahead." Sylvia quickly stood up to leave. She decided to check on Jack in the bathroom. He was still gargling his mouth and splashing his face with cold water. Sylvia walked over and he looked up at her. His lips were even redder than before, as if he was wearing lipstick, and his eyes were watery. He said weakly, "It's really spicy, but I ate it since you fed it to me. I didn't spit it out." Sylvia's heart softened at his innocent face. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have fed that to you." Sylvia felt bad. Jack grinned. "Feed me something non-spicy next time then." Sylvia's face darkened. "I'm not going to feed you anymore. Feed yourself." Jack lowered his head sadly. Sylvia didn't know what to say. "In the future, don't flirt with me in front of my colleagues. They might get the wrong idea about us. I don't want that, so just treat me like another one of your bodyguards." "Flirt?" Jack was stunned. He didn't understand what she meant. Yeah, flirtations. That's when you treat a girl extremely nice. You were flirting with me when you followed behind me and when you kept staring at me. Sylvia thought that she sounded a little harsh, but she had to make herself clear. Jack looked at her without blinking. He looked lost. Just watch it, Sylvia reminded him before walking away. She turned to see Jack staring into the basin. His fringe was wet, his lips looked downturned, and his eyes looked forlorn. He looked like a sad puppy. Sylvia quickly looked away. Her heart would melt into goo if she looked any longer. Jack looked at her sadly as she walked away. When Mr. Maxwell saw him, he started walking toward him, but watched him sadly walk to his own room. He looked hurt. Mr. Maxwell chased after him, saying, "Mr. Kipling!" Jack laid down on his bed sadly and turned away from Mr. Maxwell. "What's the matter, Mr. Kipling?" "She said that she doesn't like me following her around and staring at her," Jack said pitifully. He sounded like he was hurt by her words. "Then you have to control yourself," Mr. Maxwell said. Jack paused to think before replying, "No, I can't control myself." In the afternoon, Jack didn't emerge from his bedroom. Sylvia was bored and wandering around the laboratory by herself when she entered the back garden by accident. There were all sorts of trees and plants growing. "These are planted by Miss Kipling herself." Mr. Maxwell suddenly appeared behind her. Sylvia was surprised and nodded her head. "Impressive. I can't plant anything." "Mr. Kipling's favorite pastime is watching and tending to these plants while he's not researching." Mr. Maxwell smiled. "He doesn't have any friends, and his family is devoted to research as well. His life is dry and boring, other than his work." Sylvia felt bad when she heard that. "The psychiatrist said the reason he doesn't enjoy talking is because of the lack of company since he was young." Mr. Maxwell sighed. "He said that writing is not tiring and is a coping mechanism he uses to escape his loneliness. Officer Bennett, I know his way of life disturbs you, but he just wants a friend." Sylvia bit her lip and said, "I know that he only wants a friend, but it could be seen as flirty in others' eyes." "Officer Bennett, it turns out that you care a lot about how other people think of you." Mr. Maxwell smiled and said, "I get it. I'll make it clear to Mr. Kipling and tell him not to bother you again. See you." After he was finished talking, Mr. Maxwell turned and walked away. That's not what I meant." Sylvia scratched her scalp and said, She was always a smart talker, but at that moment, she stuttered. "It's all right. Everyone has the right to choose friends. Perhaps you don't want to be friends with Mr. Kipling because he is too weird. That is very reasonable. Many people are like that. They admire him for his work but stay away from him because of his character. I can understand. I just feel a little sorry for Mr. Kipling, as he got up at 6 in the morning and waited out there to see you." Mr. Maxwell gave a faint smile and then left. Sylvia was depressed. Mr. Maxwell's words made her feel guilty. It wasn't like that she didn't want to become friends with him. He sometimes held her hand and refused to let go, and sometimes asked her to feed him. Was that how people treated their friends? However, she understood that she couldn't judge him with the standard of normal people, as he had a character flaw. At 6 in the evening, Jack was lying on the bed and his stomach was rumbling. As he stood up and opened the door, Mr. Maxwell came in with a serving cart. Jack put on his shoes and shook his head. Mr. Maxwell understood that he wanted to go out and have a meal with Sylvia. "Have you forgotten that you had a fight with Officer Bennett earlier? You need to eat in your room tonight," Mr. Maxwell said to him. Jack paused briefly, then shook his head again. He worried that Mr. Maxwell might not get his meaning, so he picked up the notebook and pen on the nightstand and wrote, "I woke up. I forgot about that." Mr. Maxwell smiled and said, "But I talked to Officer Bennett this afternoon. She said she doesn't want to have a meal with you and she doesn't want to be your friend." Hearing his words, Jack was in a daze for a while, then his eyes suddenly became lusterless. Mr. Maxwell felt sorry for him. He knew that it was cruel, but he also knew that Mr. Kipling was a very frank person. Sometimes, to achieve a better result, he had to tell him the truth. "If you keep talking to her, looking at her, and following her, she'll dislike you more and more. So to avoid bringing her trouble, don't look at her, talk, or have meals with her anymore. Okay?" Jack shook his head quickly. He couldn't do that. That was too painful. "Do what you want then. But Officer Bennett will dislike you more and more. She might even refuse to go to Paris with you." said Mr. Maxwell helplessly. Jack paused for a short while and then lowered his head. Mr. Maxwell pretended not to notice his sad face and served the food. Jack had no appetite. He had a few bites, then laid back down. Mr. Maxwell returned to the dining room and said to Sylvia and the others, "You don't need to wait for Mr. Kipling. He already had a meal in his room." Clyde felt a little sorry. "Have we been bothering Mr. Kipling? We can eat in another room, actually." "It's not like that. Mr. Kipling is in a bad mood. He has no appetite." While speaking, Mr. Maxwell glanced at Sylvia. After that, he left to do his work. Clyde immediately looked at Sylvia seriously and said, "Are you having problems with Mr. Kipling?" No." Sylvia picked up her fork and started eating. "Why didn't Mr. Kipling come out then?" Carlos said indignantly. "How could you fight with such a cute, innocent, and handsome big boy? You are too cruel. If I were you, I would be showing him my tender, loving care. Of course, like how I would treat a younger brother. Don't get me wrong, guys." Sylvia was speechless. Big boy? He was more like an old man pretending to be young. Clyde nodded his head and said as well, "Don't hurt Mr. Kipling." Sylvia said, "You only had one meal with him. Do you really need to be so protective over him?" Carlo furrowed his brows. "I don't know. I only know that my heart melted when I saw him. If we get into any danger in Paris, I'm going to sacrifice myself to keep him safe." "Yup," Clyde agreed. "He is so cute." Sylvia felt awkward listening to these grown men. She had to agree, though. That guy was adorable. Sylvia looked over at Alex, who was silent. He took a bite and looked up at her and said coldly, "It's good that you're maintaining your distance from him. You are not good enough for him." Sylvia had completely lost her appetite. She took a couple of bites restlessly. She felt like she had done something terrible, especially now that Jack wasn't coming out of his room. She couldn't fall asleep at night, so she called April. "Do you think I was being too harsh with him?" "Yeah, you were. Extremely harsh." April was disapproving. "How could you say something so hurtful? Does it really matter what others think? Or are you afraid that Jeremy will hear about this? Are you still planning on getting back with him?" "No, of course not." Sylvia was shocked. "I didn't want to have a special relationship with Jack. I'm afraid that my colleagues might get the wrong idea. I don't want them to think that I treat relationships lightly. It would make it difficult for me to find a real relationship in the future." "What are you afraid of? You're single now anyway. You don't need to worry about anything. You're free to mingle with anyone you like. You can flirt with whoever you want. I don't have a single friend of the opposite gender since I got together with your brother. You should make use of this opportunity." April was getting excited when Aaron suddenly said, "You sound like you regret settling down with me so quickly. You want to have more fun and flirt around more?" "Stop, I'm still on the phone." Sylvia could hear heavy breathing on the phone and immediately her face turned red. She couldn't stand the two of them. They should have hung up first. She hung up and reflected on what April said. Yeah, she was single. Why should she care what others thought of her? Couldn't she have her own friends of her own? They set off at 7:30 a.m. and Sylvia was the last one to wake up. She packed up hastily before she met up with the others. Everyone was ready and waiting in the living room. Jack was wearing a pair of black crop pants and a white button-down, coupled with a shining pair of black Oxford shoes. Jack was always wearing something casual like track pants and sweats. Sylvia's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen him in anything this formal before. His usually disheveled hair was neatly pulled back, accentuating his chiseled jawline. He had a different aura, and she was swept away. Seeing Sylvia fix her eyes on Jack, Clyde put a fist on his mouth and coughed. Then he reminded her, saying, "Sylvia, the breakfast is on the table. Pick some and then we'll go. Otherwise, we'll miss the flight." "Oh, all right." Sylvia grabbed some avocado toast and coffee. Carlo offered to carry her suitcase. Sylvia glanced at Jack. The latter didn't look at her but followed behind Christian. She was a little unhappy. She couldn't help but recall how he turned back over and over to look at her yesterday when he left. Somehow she felt as if she had raised a puppy and it was suddenly not clinging to her anymore. They walked out of the institution and saw 2 cars parked outside. Clyde arranged for Sylvia, Jack, and Mr. Maxwell to be in the same car and the rest in the other car. Sylvia sat with Jack in the back seat. As soon as the car started, Jack sat up straight and fastened his seatbelt. As a police officer, Sylvia needed to be alert and looked around for any potential threats. She noticed sometimes that Jack would look at her sneakily. Every time she turned to look at him, he immediately turned his eyes away like a timid little rabbit. Sylvia found that funny. Suddenly, she felt much better. As he looked at her again, she abruptly turned to catch him. She caught him a few times, then noticed that Jack's earlobes had turned red. When they arrived at the airport, Jack opened the door and got off the car first. Sylvia immediately got off the car and said to him, "You have to wait until I get off the car and observe the surrounding area." Jack avoided her. "Did you hear what I said?" Sylvia repeated herself. "When we go to Paris, you need to cooperate with us." Jack lowered his head and kept ignoring her. "Why don't you talk to me?" Sylvia felt annoyed. "You don't want to be friends with me. You dislike me, so it's better I don't talk to you," Jack said with a low voice, and then quickly walked to Mr. Maxwell. Sylvia was very angry. She had never said that she disliked him. They entered the airport and started to go through security. The security process for international passengers was rather complicated. Even though they had a special pass, it still took them around 50 minutes. As Mr. Maxwell was falling behind alone, Sylvia hurriedly went to him and asked, "Mr. Maxwell, what have you told Mr. Kipling? He refused to talk to me and said that I dislike him." "I told him that you don't like him and that you don't want to be friends with him. I also told him not to bother you again." Mr. Maxwell smiled and said, "Was I wrong?" Sylvia felt remorseful. She slightly opened her mouth and prepared to say something. Before she could spill a word, Mr. Maxwell interrupted her. "You meant that yesterday when you talked to me. I don't know how to speak in an indirect way, so I told Mr. Kipling the truth. He won't bother you anymore, Miss Bennet, so you can stop worrying." After he finished talking, Mr. Maxwell went after Jack. Sylvia felt like the bad guy. She regretted it. She shouldn't have said what she said the day before. Mr. Maxwell was right. She was being too hurtful. Just because she cared about what others thought of her, she selfishly pushed away someone so pure and kind. At the VIP waiting lounge, Jack sat aloof in a daze, ignoring the chatter around him. Perhaps he was deep in thought, but Sylvia swore he looked bored and a little sad. Like what Mr. Maxwell said, he had no friends and he wasn't good at socializing. He extended his kindness to her, but she shunned it because it bothered her. The more she thought about it, the more upset she felt. She wanted to walk over to him, but the lounge was quiet. She didn't know how to explain herself if she walked over to him. When they finally boarded the plane, Mr. Maxwell and Jack sat together. Sylvia walked over and asked to change seats with Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Maxwell refused her. "Officer Bennet, haven't I made myself clear? Have you stopped caring about what others think about you?" Sylvia was blushing from embarrassment. "Mr. Maxwell, I can protect him if I sit next to him. I'm here to apologize to you and Mr. Kipling. I was being selfish yesterday." "Have you really thought this through?" Mr. Maxwell raised his brows. "Please don't do anything to hurt Mr. Kipling anymore. The longer you spend time together, the more hurtful your words will be." "I promise I won't," Sylvia swore. "Please take care of Mr. Kipling during the flight then." Mr. Maxwell stood up to make way. Jack looked at Mr. Maxwell and he seemed troubled. He then looked at Sylvia and quickly looked away, staring outside the window. "Isn't it uncomfortable to sit that way?" Sylvia teased him. He still wasn't looking at her. She could only see his side profile, his pink ear facing her. Jack felt a wave of electricity pass through him and he turned around violently. Sylvia's face was inches away from his. After staring into each other's eyes for a while, Jack was blushing to the tips of his ears. Sylvia was feeling a little awkward, but she found it amusing when she saw his face turn red. "All right, don't be angry anymore. I'll apologize to you. And it's not that I don't want to be your friend. Neither do I dislike you," Sylvia said. "I'm sorry. Will you still talk to me?" They continued looking at each other for quite some time. Sylvia thought he was like a sweet, cute, and innocent boy. After nearly half a minute, he quickly wrote on his notepad, "Can I still follow you around and talk to you? Do you like me?" Sylvia nodded her head. "Of course. We can be good friends." Jack's eyes lit up and he nodded his head and wrote again, "Please don't hate me. I like you." Sylvia's heart melted when she read what he wrote. How could there be anyone as pure and innocent as him? He was like a blank slate. "I like you as a friend, too." Sylvia smiled. Jack was grinning like a child. Put on your seatbelt, Sylvia said, reminding him. He obediently fastened his seatbelt and continued to stare at her. Look to the front. Don't always stare at me. Sylvia adjusted his face to the front. Jack grinned as he wrote, You are pretty. I know that I'm pretty. You don't need to always mention that or it'll become boring. Sylvia laughed and fastened her seatbelt as well. Jack was in a much better mood now. He wrote her another note. We'll have steak in Paris. Sylvia laughed. You don't eat meat, do you? Jack wrote. You eat steak, I'll eat vegetable salad. Sylvia watched him writing word by word. That made her feel very annoyed. She took away his notepad and said, Do you know how to make me like you more? Talk to me, instead of writing. Jack looked at her with a deep frown, as if he had fallen into some kind of difficulty. Our mouths are for talking, right? Sylvia tried to persuade him. If talking is exhausting, will kissing be exhausting too? You'll have a girlfriend someday, and you'll kiss her. Kissing requires you to move your mouth too. Or are you going to simply press your lips against her without moving your lips and tongue? Jack's eyes popped with a confused look as if he had just walked into a new world. He attempted to grab the notepad, but failed. With no other choice, he said, Why move my tongue when kissing? Sylvia silently clicked her tongue. He's so innocent, she thought. Of course you need to move your tongue, or you won't have any feelings. Do you understand? Sylvia explained patiently. Jack was even more confused. What feelings? He asked. Sylvia opened her mouth and said, Well, I can't describe it with language. You can try it with a woman someday, and then you'll know. Jack thought for a moment, nodded, and said, Are you a woman? Sure. Can I try it with you? Jack blinked, then looked at her with an innocent, curious face. Sylvia was left dumbfounded. Huh! Carlo, who sat behind him, couldn't help but burst in laughter. He stood up, turned to Sylvia, and laughed. Can you avoid talking about such topics with him? Don't eavesdrop on our conversation. Sylvia gave him a glare. Her face slightly reddened. Carlo ignored her and turned to Jack, saying, I'm telling you, you need to try it. Really, you'll be overwhelmed with joy. It'll be fantastic. Sylvia shivered and said, You're making a romantic thing sound disgusting. Sit down, the plane is taking off. Try it. Carlo repeated again and then sat back into his seat. Jack turned back to Sylvia with a confused look. Sylvia worried that he might say something shocking, so she hurriedly told him, You can only kiss your girlfriend. I am only your friend. Jack stayed silent, lowered his head, then fell into deep thought. Not long after the plane took off, Jack became so sleepy that he couldn't keep his eyes open. Didn't you sleep last night? Sylvia asked. Jack shook his head, staring at the notepad in her hand. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to write. Answer my question by talking, or don't answer it at all. Sylvia refused to give him the notepad. He gave her a glance with discontent, but then said with a low voice, I missed you. I was upset. I couldn't sleep. Sylvia was delighted as he finally talked. Get some sleep then. I won't bother you. Jack nodded and closed his eyes. Soon, he fell asleep. Sylvia asked a flight attendant for a blanket and then covered Jack with it. The sunlight poured onto his face through the window. His skin was tender and snow-white. His eyelashes were thick and long, like a pair of tiny hand fans. He looked peaceful. After an hour on the plane, the air stewardess came over with a food trolley. The in-flight meal in the first-class cabin was scrumptious. Sylvia tried to wake Jack up. He was still groggy when he rubbed his eyes open. The air stewardess couldn't hold it in. She was staring blankly at Jack and had forgotten to serve Sylvia her food. Can I have the steak, please? Sylvia reached out. Okay. The stewardess nodded her head and handed over the steak to Jack. Sylvia's hands froze in midair. What a superficial world they lived in. I'm sorry, he doesn't like beef, Sylvia said through gritted teeth. He'll just have some plain white rice. I'll have the beef, Jack said. I thought you didn't like meat. Sylvia was confused. Jack took the meal and placed it in front of Sylvia. For me? Sylvia was touched. Although the stewardess ignored her, her travel companion didn't. The air stewardess looked at her enviously and took another set of beef and gave it to Jack. He placed it in front of Sylvia again. She smiled and said, One is enough for me. You can have it. You can have mine too. You'll like it, right? Jack answered seriously. Thank you. Sylvia's heart melted. He was such an adorable man. She was a fool for thinking that he was bothersome. She handed the steak back to the air stewardess anyway. Can I have a portion of rice? The air stewardess watched their interaction enviously and quickly served a portion of rice. Sylvia placed it in front of Jack and said, I can't stuff myself with steak. I'm still looking forward to eating that steak in Paris. Jack happily nodded. The air stewardess quickly set down the rest of their meal. There was a fruit salad, cake, wine, and salmon. Jack only ate the fruit salad and the rice. Sylvia had to eat both of their portions. She was stuffed with food. She wished that April was around. It would be an easy feat for her. After lunch, Jack quickly fell asleep again. Sylvia couldn't fall asleep, so she started watching 007 on the in-flight screen. Before long, James Bond was rolling in the sheets with another female actress. It was a hot scene. Bond was charismatic and the Bond girl had a sexy body. Just as Sylvia was absorbed in the movie drinking her wine, she felt Jack move beside her. She turned and saw him staring at her screen as well. Sylvia nearly spat out her wine. When did you wake up? When he removed her dress, Jack said. So they moved their tongues when they kissed? I understand now. Kissing induces a biological response in people. Jack lowered his head thoughtfully. I get that kind of reaction sometimes when I'm not kissing. Why was he telling her that? She wasn't a man. If you don't mind me asking, how do you usually solve your problem? Sylvia couldn't help but ask. Jack blinked and said, I hold it in. Sylvia was speechless. I'm going to sleep for a while. I'm feeling really sleepy now. Sylvia quickly turned off her screen and pretended to close her eyes. He could be really troublesome if he got used to talking. She didn't dare to talk to him again. The flight lasted for over 10 hours and Sylvia slept for about 5. The plane finally landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport in the afternoon. The organizer of the conference picked them up and drove them to the hotel. For Jack's safety, they would all live in a large suite which had 2 stories. Clyde and the others would live on the first floor, while Sylvia, Christian, and Jack on the second. However, when he followed Jack into his room, the latter stopped him, then pointed at Sylvia, who was walking into the room across the hall. Christian smiled and said, Mr. Kipling, Miss Bennet is a girl after all. It's not appropriate for her to share a room with you. Also, have you forgotten that it's always me who sleeps in the same room as you? You can forget about me once you met a pretty girl, he thought. Jack shook his head, then walked out, dragging Sylvia by her arm. Then he pushed her suitcase into his room. Sylvia was speechless. Christian found it both annoying and funny. Mr. Kipling, has Miss Bennet agreed yet? Sylvia nodded. Finally, someone asked about her feelings. Yeah, you're a guy and I'm a girl. Besides, Mr. Zeppelin is a better fighter than I am, and he has worked with you for a long time. Jack lowered his head, took out his notepad again, and wrote, He snores. He's noisy. Jack kept writing, like a motorcycle, rumbling. Enough. Stop writing. I know that you're a good writer. I'll be next door. Officer Bennett, I'll leave him to you. Christian turned and left with a suitcase. Sylvia didn't know how to handle the situation. I snore too, like thunder, she said. Jack paused and then wrote, You should sleep in my room then. Don't disturb the others. Sylvia didn't know what to say. Sometimes she suspected that he was just toying with her. But I'll be disturbing you. You're attending the International Physics Conference soon. You need to rest well and be focused. Jack abruptly pressed his lips together and gave a naughty smile, then wrote, In fact, I can sleep when people are snoring. I just want to be in the same room with you. Why? She asked. Because you're my friend, Jack wrote. Sylvia sighed with relief, then said, But Christian is your friend too. Jack knitted his brows and started thinking. At last he wrote, You're prettier than him. All right, that could be the answer to all questions. The world was ruled by pretty people. Clyde walked over, patted Sylvia on the shoulder, and said, Just listen to Mr. Kipling. Don't sleep too deep at night. Also, unpack your things as quickly as possible, then check this entire place. See if there are any hidden cameras or anything like that. We're in a foreign nation, after all. Sylvia nodded. There was only one bed in the room, so she made herself a bed on the floor. As she arranged the mattress on the floor, Jack walked over and sat on it with his pillow in his hand. "What are you doing?" Sylvia was perplexed. Jack wrote, "I can't let a girl sleep on the floor." Sylvia felt comforted. He was finally acting like a man. "Thanks, but I'm supposed to protect you. I can't sleep on your bed. You can have it." Jack blinked and wrote, "Let's sleep on the floor together then." He quickly stood up to roll up the bed sheets on the bed. Sylvia blocked his way. "Why would you sleep on the floor if there's a bed around? Sleep on it. I'm leaving the room if you don't listen to me." Jack looked at her grumpily and then finally stopped after sensing that Sylvia was serious about leaving the room. After secretly heaving a huge sigh of relief, Sylvia quickly inspected the room and found a small microphone installed behind the television. Clyde reported the matter to the manager of the hotel, and the management insisted they had nothing to do with it. They claimed it might have been put there by a previous guest, and that they would compensate them for their hotel stay over the next few days to express their apology. If they were unsatisfied with the arrangement, they could find another accommodation. When the manager left the room, Carlos said angrily, "These people are just patronizing us. We can spill this news and expose them on the mainstream media." "No," Clyde shook his head. "We can't afford this to go public and expose Mr. Kipling's identity. His research may be in danger. Just forget it. Let's just compromise with this. If we switch hotels, we would have to re-strategize again. Alex has already checked in at the opposite hotel as our undercover agent. We can't change our plans now." "All right. Good thing the microphone is removed now. We should still be careful about talking in the hotel." Carlo nodded his head. "No matter what, this shows that someone here knows Mr. Kipling. We need to be careful now." Clyde frowned. "Let's hope that everything goes smoothly as planned." The three revisited their strategy for the following day and decided to go back to rest. Sylvia was about to retire to her room when Carlos smirked at her and said, "Hey, Bennett, hold it in tonight. Don't talk about kissing with a grown man. It's dangerous." Sylvia nearly tripped over her own foot. Clyde added, saying, "I don't oppose you dating him, but you shouldn't tire Mr. Kipling out. He will be giving a speech at the grand conference. Don't affect his mental state tomorrow." "What do you take me for?" Sylvia said through gritted teeth. Clyde looked at her with confusion. "You even told him not to hold it in. What can I say?" She didn't expect them to hear her conversation so clearly. She should have known better since they were police officers. Of course they had sharp senses. When she went back to her room, she discovered that the door to the master bedroom wasn't locked and it was empty. There was the sound of running water in the bathroom. Through the frosted glass, she could see a figure in there. Sylvia looked at the figure. He seemed to be scrubbing his body. She quickly looked away and jumped into the bed she had made for herself. As she was falling asleep, someone opened the door and walked in. As a police officer, she was always vigilant. She quickly opened her eyes when she heard the footsteps stop right next to her. She felt someone gently lift her blanket. Jack was squatting beside her in a sky blue pajama set. He had just taken a shower. His skin was slightly pink and his moist hair was sticking to his cheeks. His nose was shaped perfectly. He looked like a sculpted Greek god. He raised both hands. One hand was holding a corner of her blanket. His face wore a careful look. She quickly turned around to look at him, and this made Jack panic like a child. "What are you doing?" Sylvia immediately sat up. In a haste, she forgot about her bra that she had hidden under the covers, which fell onto the ground. Jack couldn't help but pick it up and stared at her bra with confusion. Sylvia paused briefly, then realized what happened. Despite the fact that she was a thick-skinned person, her cheeks burned. She took the bra away from his hands, then glared at him and said, "Why are you touching my things?" Jack stayed silent but fixed his eyes on her chest, and he suddenly fell into silence. Sylvia followed his eyes and lowered her head. She figured out what he was looking at, and then nearly exploded. "You rascal! I'm not staying in the same room with you!" With both shame and anger, Sylvia covered her chest with the blanket, prepared to get up and leave. Jack automatically grasped her blanket. Sylvia used quite a bit of strength to get up from the ground. At that moment, she lost her balance and fell onto the wooden floor. "Be careful!" Jack was sitting on the ground, so it was impossible for him to stand up and catch her. He instinctively laid down on the floor. Sylvia saw his hip before falling into the ground. She couldn't control herself. Her face smashed straight on his body. Ugh! Jack couldn't help but moan in pain. His hip hurt so much. One of her arms fell on his waist, which gave him pain in the waist, too. The room turned upside down in Sylvia's eyes. Thank God my face doesn't hurt, she thought. This thing under me is soft. She raised her head with difficulty, then saw Jack's hip. The door to the room was still left ajar, and Christian, who was passing by, saw this scene in the room and was left shocked. Sylvia's brain wasn't working at that moment. She could sense someone by the door and suddenly looked up. She tried to say something. I didn't see anything. My eyes are hurting. I'm going to sleep, he said quickly and scrambled back to his room. What he just saw was way too shocking. He couldn't seem to be able to process it, even though he was a very tough man. Sylvia wanted to cry. She was never so embarrassed in her whole life. She sat up. Her mind was completely blank. Did you do that on purpose? I thought you were innocent, but it turns out that you're a wolf in sheep's clothing. I've never met a dirty man like you. Jack's body twitched slightly because of the pain. He felt wronged and unhappy. I didn't. I didn't want you to get hurt, so I lay underneath you. You fell on me. It hurts. Sylvia felt embarrassed. There was no way she was going to admit to anything. You can't blame me. You were going to take advantage of me while I was asleep. Sylvia was frustrated. I only agreed to stay because I trust your character, but I didn't think you would. What were you doing pulling open my blanket? Were you planning to sneak into the same bed? Were you trying to sneak a peek at my body? No. Jack looked hurt. I thought you were asleep. I was going to carry you to the bed. Sylvia was silent. She might have misunderstood him. That's a perfect excuse. She would never admit that she misjudged him. She had to find a way to explain herself. Don't you know that you're not supposed to lift a lady's blanket? It's considered an outrage of modesty. Jack opened his mouth. He looked like he didn't know what to say. Forget it. I won't blame it on you for what happened tonight. Go to bed. Sylvia quickly covered herself and lay down. She realized that he was still lying there, not moving at all, taking up a lot of space. When are you going to move? Get up quickly. It hurts, Jack said softly. Where does it hurt? Sylvia was a little nervous. He was of different importance after all. He was going to represent the country at the International Physics Conference. If he was hurt, she would be the center of the country. My ass hurts, Jack said. You have a big face. Nothing hurt more than being called a big face. Sylvia chuckled. I'm not even complaining about your smelly ass. It's not. Jack was nervous. I just showered. Sylvia pretended she was about to throw up. He quickly climbed to his feet and walked into the bathroom quietly. The sound of running water could be heard from the room. Sylvia was speechless. Was he taking another shower just because she said that he was smelly? She couldn't be bothered to engage him. She laid back down, but after 10 minutes, he was still in the bathroom. She started to worry and walked over to knock on the door. You've been there a long time. Come out now. No, you said I was smelly. His muffled voice echoed across the door. I was lying to you. Sylvia found it funny. I don't believe you. I'm a pig if I lied to you. Now stop bothering me and go to bed. I'm exhausted, Sylvia said, then went back to her bed. Jack looked at her dainty foot and then looked at his own. He walked over to her and quickly removed his slippers and plastered his foot against hers. After the shower, his foot was warm, and when they made contact, it was fiery hot. The warmth spread through her entire body. What do you want? Sylvia quickly retracted her foot. Jack lowered his head and laughed. He then quickly stood up and walked to his own bed. He shifted to the edge of the bed, getting closer to Sylvia, and turned to look at her from above. Don't step on me during the night. Go to sleep and turn off the light, Sylvia said. She wasn't leaving her blanket anymore. Jack turned off the lights and Sylvia quickly fell asleep. Jack couldn't sleep a wink. He felt magical. A pretty girl was in his room, and she was his friend. A sweet fragrance lingered in the room as he slipped in and out of sleep while staring at the beauty lying ahead of him. Finally, dawn came. Sylvia's phone, which was beside her feet, started to buzz. Jack didn't want the phone call to wake her up, so he hurriedly got up from the bed. To stop the phone from buzzing, he quickly pressed the green button on the screen. He didn't put it on speaker, but still heard a voice from the phone. He walked to the balcony with the phone. Hello, can you hear me? Why don't you speak? Is the signal bad? Jack glanced at the name on the screen. The brother found on the street. It turns out that her brother was found on the street, he thought. Jack put the phone near his ear and said an awkward, "Hello?" Sitting in his office, Aaron glanced at the screen of his phone. It was Sylvia's number. "Who are you? Why do you have Sylvia's phone?" Aaron sounded very angry. "She's sleeping." Jack lowered his voice and said, "Please, do not disturb her." Why on earth was she with a man when she was sleeping? Aaron quickly stood up and burst into rage. "Where's Sylvia? Tell her to get up. I need to talk to her." "She's sleeping. Don't disturb her," Jack repeated. "This guy is so annoying. Does he have a problem with his brain? Didn't I make it clear enough?" Aaron thought, "This is why I don't like talking to people." "Who are you?" he asked through clenched teeth. "It's a secret." Aaron buried his forehead in his hand. He felt like he was talking to a crazy guy. "You're not Jack, are you?" "Yeah, I knew it was you," Aaron said with anger. "I could tell that you weren't a good person the last time I saw you. Aren't you mute?" "I'm not," Jack responded with discontent. "This guy is so impolite. How could he say that I'm mute? No wonder Sylvia said that he was from the street," he thought. "I'm done talking to you. If you want to talk to me, text me," Jack said reluctantly. That guy was Sylvia's family. For Sylvia's sake, he respected her family. Otherwise, he wouldn't say a word to Aaron. "I'm not going to text you." Aaron was so angry that he even laughed. "You're not my wife," he thought. What a sick boy. Bye. Jack ended the call. "Oi! Hello!" Aaron yelled into the phone. He then realized that Jack had hung up on him. It would be a disaster if he got married to Sylvia. That's not going to happen. I will not let him become a part of this family, he said to himself. Jack silently returned to the room with the phone and slowly kept it next to Sylvia's feet once again. Sylvia turned suddenly, leaving Jack a little stunned. Part of her leg hung outside the blanket, and Jack could clearly see her slender and white legs as her pajamas had rolled back to her thighs. He couldn't help but stare at it without batting his eyelid for a second. Sylvia opened her eyes and saw a person squatting before. "What time is it?" She sat up straight, rubbing her eyes. "I don't know." Jack's eyes were shimmering. Sylvia followed his gaze, and when she finally saw what he was looking at, she quickly retracted her legs back into the blanket. She glared at Jack. "You're peeking at me again." "I'm sorry." Jack lowered his head earnestly. "I think your legs are fairer than your face." What a thing to hear first thing in the morning. She knew that she wasn't fair. Was there a problem with that? Did he have to point it out? He was teasing her now. Yes, all police officers have to be under the sun most of the time. Of course, my face is tan. Sylvia was frustrated. "Stop looking at my legs. It's ungentlemanly to do so." Jack paused to think for a moment before lifting the hem of his pants. He looked at Sylvia seductively. Sylvia blinked. Jack explained, "You can look at mine." Sylvia looked at his fair legs and she felt self-conscious, but she wouldn't admit it. "This is making me uncomfortable." Sylvia grunted and glared at him. "Now turn away. I'm going to put on my bra." Jack turned and walked out of the room. By the time Sylvia washed up and got dressed, Clyde and the rest were awake too. The hotel had sent breakfast over. After breakfast, Jack handed over a note to the men. It read, "Please roll up your pants." Clyde and the rest thought it was part of his research, so they quickly did as they were told. Jack smiled when he saw their legs and pulled Sylvia over. When Sylvia frowned, he handed her another note. "I have lesser hair than them. That means my leg is nice." Sylvia didn't know what to say. "What's the matter?" Clyde walked over and saw the note, then he felt a little offended. "Mr. Kipling, that's not a nice thing to say." Jack grinned before writing. "Too bad you have so much leg hair." How was he so good at insulting others? The International Physics Conference was happening on Thursday. On the first day in Paris, the Research Academy had invited all researchers to the Paris Science and Technology Fair. They rode in an RV van to the fair. Mr. Maxwell said, "There will be lots of inventions designed by young talents in Europe at the fair. Most of the gadgets will not be available to the market yet. It's an opportunity for them to showcase their most advanced technological inventions." "What's the big deal about that? I think Mr. Kipling trumps them in many areas," Carlos said indignantly while looking at Jack. "What do you say, Mr. Kipling?" Jack didn't answer. He was staring out of the car window in a daze. "Mr. Kipling, did you hear me?" Carlo prodded him again. Jack was still in a trance. Sylvia had to grab a hold of his attention and she repeated Carlo's question. "Oh, I don't know." There are always more capable and intelligent people out there, Jack said distractedly. You can't say that, Sylvia said agitatedly. We need to show them how impressive our scientists are. Let's maintain a low profile. Jack nodded his head. Lay low? Can't you understand a word I said? Sylvia took a deep breath, then said, We lay low whenever we should, but in terms of great honor, we should show our strength. Jack blinked and nodded. Looking at his calm face, Sylvia suddenly felt frustrated. She had talked so much, yet Jack's passion wasn't aroused at all. At 10:30, they arrived at the Science and Technology Museum. The museum had a long history and was bustling with tourists when they arrived. Clyde said to Sylvia, It's inappropriate for us to follow Mr. Kipling. I notice the other scientists aren't open with bodyguards. Later, you stay with Mr. Kipling. Tell the others that you're his girlfriend. The rest of us will enter the museum as tourists. I know this place has strict security measures. It should be fine. Just be careful. We'll be right by you. Okay, Sylvia nodded. Jack, Mr. Maxwell, and Sylvia passed the security and entered the museum without the others. Mr. Maxwell abruptly stopped and said to her, Miss Bennett, since you're pretending to be Mr. Kipling's girlfriend, maybe you should hold hands. No offense, but you don't look like a couple at all. Sylvia paused while Jack seemed to be confused. He had no idea how to pretend to be someone's boyfriend. With no other choice, he looked at Sylvia. Sylvia worked in a police station before. Back in school, she had practiced how to pretend to be a couple with someone, but she never did it for a real mission. However, she was in a relationship before and she knew how to pretend. She reached out and held Jack's hand. Normally, she seemed to be a carefree girl. However, she rarely held hands with guys. She held Jeremy's hand before, but that didn't happen often. After all, Jeremy was always away from home in the army. She had broken up with him for about half a month and had forgotten how holding hands felt. Jack's hands weren't as rough and warm as Jeremy's. His hands were slightly cold and her fingers were slim. Jack's fingertips were slightly callous. Sylvia couldn't help but rub his calloused fingers with hers. Jack's entire hand went numb. He froze, and a stream of warmth spread all over his body and to his earlobes. He wanted to write, but she was holding his hand. Her hand was hot and soft. When she rubbed his fingers, he felt as if his body was on fire. Even walking became difficult for him. Don't touch me, he said in a low voice, and looked at her shyly. Behind them, Mr. Maxwell was very surprised. Sylvia suddenly realized what she was doing. It was so embarrassing. However, she could not let anyone else know about her sneaky movements. In a serious voice, she said to him, I didn't touch you. I am just holding your hand. Boyfriends and girlfriends have to hold hands. You need to get used to this. Jack lowered his head. Seeing him, Sylvia was a little frustrated. It was like she was taking advantage of him. Let's go. Sylvia guided him into the museum. Walking into the museum, she sensed the beauty of history. Scientists from all over the world were in the lobby. Most of them were over 40 years old, so Jack caught people's eyes once he went in. Are you Mr. Kipling? I'm Bernie. I'm an attendant from the Paris Institute of Physics. A blond middle-aged man walked over, smiling. Jack nodded his head and shook his hand. Bernie waited a while, but Jack never said anything in reply. Mr. Maxwell quickly explained, saying, Jack Kipling doesn't like to speak. Bernie was stunned for a while, but decided that he had to interact with Mr. Jack Kipling as if he was mute. However, he wasn't surprised. Many of his fellow scientists liked to stay in their laboratories without much contact with the outside world. They slowly developed an antisocial personality. Of course, other physicists weren't that good at science, but superb at socializing, rising in the ranks. He was one of those scientists. He wasn't displeased at the fact that Jack was mute. He would find him an opportunity later on to humiliate him. This is Mr. Jack Kipling's girlfriend, I presume? Bernie looked over at Sylvia, his eyes lighting up. Sylvia wasn't the typical girl next door. She almost looked handsome and appealed to the Westerner's beauty standards. Before Sylvia spoke, Jack frowned and pulled her to stand behind him. Bernie was stunned and laughed. Mr. Kipling, you are really protective over your girlfriend, I see. Jack nodded his head. A few more researchers were entering the event hall, and Bernie walked over to greet them. Jack wasn't good at socializing. He was young and hardly been to these sort of events before. Most of the other attendees were standing around in circles talking to each other, but he was the only one standing alone. After about 5 minutes, a physicist approached him. He looked like he was over 60 years old and his hair was white. Jack, I didn't expect you to be the one attending this time. Jack bowed to the man respectfully. Professor Wilson. Professor Wilson was stunned and he burst out into a light chuckle. You're different now that you have a girlfriend. It was so difficult for you to speak a word in the past. You were always holding on to a notepad and a pen. Gah, that really gave me a headache. It made me afraid to talk to you. Sylvia couldn't help but laugh. She could imagine how he spoke before. Professor Wilson, hello, Miss Bennet really changed Mr. Jack Kipling in many ways. Mr. Maxwell interrupted her, saying, only she could confiscate Mr. Kipling's little notepad and force him to talk. Impressive. Professor Wilson gave her a thumbs up. I always thought this chap was going to stay single for the rest of his life. I didn't expect anyone to fall in love with him. Treasure him. Although Jack doesn't talk much and is a little eccentric, he is a good lad. Sylvia reacted quickly to Mr. Maxwell's cue, saying, I will. Jack is very innocent and adorable. You know him well. Professor Wilson smiled. Oh, right. Jack, I haven't heard from you for 2 years. What have you been up to? Mr. Maxwell said apologetically. Mr. Kipling was really burnt out from an experiment he was doing. He went back to his hometown to recuperate for about a year. He's been working at Rosewood City this year, and he will be visiting you at the Rosewood City's Technological Institute Department of Physics next year. Professor Wilson was shocked. How can you be a lecturing professor if you don't enjoy talking? Jack wrote on his notepad. Things will work out eventually. Sylvia held herself back from laughing. This guy had good language skills. All right, then. I'll come down to support you when the time comes, Professor Wilson said enthusiastically. He looked over at the group of people gathered in a circle. These bunch of European bastards. They only knew how to suck up to Karl Wagner from Germany. To be honest, our technology isn't far from them now. Jack, with your talent and gift in physics, you might even be better than Karl. Jack nodded his head and wrote, Karl is older than me by 40 years. We should respect the elderly and dote on the young. Sylvia stayed silent. This guy can really say some shocking words, she thought. Professor Wilson paused briefly, then hurriedly smiled and nodded. You're right. He's even older than me. Let's forgive him. Ladies and gentlemen, I see our guests have all arrived. Let's go in, Bernie said as he clapped his hands. People walked further into the museum. Sylvia was holding Jack's hand the whole time. She found that his cool hand was becoming hotter and hotter, and his palm was moist. She raised their hands, wiped his palm with the tissue, then complained with a low voice. Why are you sweating so heavily? I'm nervous, Jack responded with an innocent voice. What's there to be nervous about? Sylvia laughed. I get it. It's your first time attending an international conference like this, right? It's all right. You should learn from my brother. He shamelessly believes he's the best in the world. Jack shook his head, glanced at her shyly, then lowered his head and said with an innocent face, This is my first time holding a girl's hand. Sylvia almost choked on her own saliva, but suddenly she felt sorry for him. He was 29 years old, yet he never held a girl's hand before. She felt that he was even more miserable than her brother, who used to be an old virgin guy. It's all right. You can try to find yourself a girlfriend when you get back, Sylvia whispered to him. Jack nodded and fell into thought. I'll ask her to be my girlfriend when we get back, he thought. At that moment, Bernie, who was walking before them, said in a proud tone,
"Let me introduce you to Alec Number 1, a robot company by Elvis, a French company. It's for extreme environment testing. This robot is in the shape of a fish. It can not only do tests in underground sewage, but is also able to undertake detecting the depth of 10,000 meters under the sea. It is made from the muscle tissue of deep-sea fishes. That allows it to withstand up to 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. Also, it can work underwater for 12 hours. It is even more durable than a tank."
Some scientists nodded and praised the robot. Sylvia didn't understand what Bernie said, as the latter was using French. She didn't speak French, so she looked around and found that many scientists from Africa and Asia were with translators. Professor Wilson complained with a low voice.
"These bastards are using French on purpose, aren't they? They know we only speak English. They want us to be embarrassed." "Mr. Kipling, what do you think about this robot?" Bernie abruptly asked, "in comparison with the ones that your country created?"
Sylvia got nervous. Mr. Maxwell hadn't translated all the French words yet, so she worried that Jack might not be able to answer the question immediately. He was good at physics, but she assumed English was his limit of language learning.
"What, Mr. Kipling, can't you even answer a simple question?"
Bernie said in French with a smile on his face. Jack glanced at the robot with a frown, then responded in French.
"Earlier this year, some of our scientists developed a prototype type like this, but we didn't use the muscle tissues from deep-sea fishes. Instead, we made the robot with a type of composite material which included nano-border theory and quantum technology. Our robot type costs less than yours. To make the robot with fish muscle tissues, we would need biologists on the team, and that would be a waste of money and human resources." "That's impossible! We never heard about that project."
Bernie didn't believe him.
"Right. We've managed to increase the density of the material to 10,000 below atmospheric pressure. We're planning to implement the fruits of our research by the end of the year. Feel free to contact us if you need the material in your country."
Jack had switched to English at the end of the speech and spoke to the entire group of physicists. Everyone was looking at him in disbelief. Suddenly, Carl from Germany walked over with a smile.
"I'm curious to know, how did you guys manage to do it? We have nanotechnology and nuclear technology as well. It's not as simple as what you have described." "I don't think your country has ever shared their latest technology with us before," Jack replied gently. Carl's expression changed. "Yes, we haven't shared our breakthroughs. But have you forgotten the hundreds of thousands of students studying in Germany? Are they not learning from us? Are you not using the talent of our students to stimulate the growth of your industries and your enterprises? Besides, you have hired many of our famous researchers. There are many American scientists, directors, and investors in Germany, aren't there?"
Jack hadn't spoken so much in a long time that he took a deep breath after saying his piece. He took the cup Mr. Maxwell was holding and uncapped it to take a big gulp. He was exhausted, but to prevent Carl from engaging him further, he decided to give him a lecture.
"As for scientific progress, we have built all of our own rockets and space shuttles. What has your country ever done for us?"
Carl's eyes widened, but he had nothing more to say.
"Good. Well said."
Professor Wilson was the first to applaud. Although Sylvia didn't understand what he said before, she understood the last bit. She was thrilled and excited, and she started clapping as well. She could never look at this man the same way again. Bernie could see that Carl's expression was dark, and he quickly said,
"Let's go look at the next exhibit."
Professor Wilson smiled.
"Bernie, please don't use French here. Although we are in France, we are at an international conference. If you're going to switch between English and French, you might give the impression that you're not well spoken in English. If you're not familiar with the language, the research center should replace you with someone else."
Bernie's face immediately had turned red. He replied, saying,
I will take note of what you said, Professor Wilson. I speak English well. It's just that I'm used to speaking in my native language, and I often mix the two together. Don't make this kind of mistake during the World Physics Conference tomorrow,
Professor Wilson said seriously. Bernie had to swallow his anger. He wanted the exhibition to end and for the crowd to disperse as soon as possible. At noon, the exhibition ended. There were many African and Russian physicists surrounding Jack. They were in a heated academic discussion about their fields of research. Sylvia was standing in a corner and listening to their discussion. They were using jargon that she didn't understand. Jack was like a different man standing in the center of the room. He wasn't like a pitiful puppy anymore. He was a respected professional, a man who was exuding a humble, charismatic glow. She couldn't even believe that she was friends with someone like that. Suddenly, she felt as if her puppy had finally grew into a beautiful dog. She was so proud and delighted. Mr. Maxwell quietly walked over to her and said smilingly,
What do you think about Mr. Kipling?
Impressive. Sylvia had to admit that she used to doubt Jack because of his weird character, but now those doubts had gone. Mr. Maxwell sighed.
Sadly, Mr. Kipling does not have a girlfriend who understands him.
That's all right. I'll find him a good one when we get back, said Sylvia honestly. I'll ask my mom. She's very resourceful. Mr. Maxwell sighed. No wonder Miss Bennet has been single. It's understandable, he thought. As the conversations between scientists lasted until 1:30, Sylvia's legs went limp. Aren't these crazy people hungry at all? She wondered. She glanced at Mr. Maxwell. He hurriedly reminded the people.
We haven't had lunch yet. It's about time. We'll be here for a few days and we will have plenty of time to talk. That's right. I can't believe we have already spent over an hour chatting,
Professor Wilson said, looking at the time. Finally, people started leaving. The chauffeur drove the car over and Jack and Sylvia got in. You guys had a really long chat, Sylvia said. Jack smilingly nodded. Talking about physics seemed to make him happy. He then lowered his head and wrote Sylvia a note. I'm so tired, I can't talk anymore. Sylvia stayed silent. Really? I thought you couldn't be tired, she thought. Rolling her eyes, she said, Get some sleep. I won't talk to you. As they returned to the hotel, lunch was served. Jack had a little food, then went back to his room to rest. Sylvia, Clyde, and the others talked about what happened that morning. They were all full of passion. Carlos said to Sylvia with excitement,
Make some efforts and get Mr. Kipling. You'll bring glory on your ancestors by making a scientist like him a member of your family.
Clyde frowned and said,
I think that won't be right. Mr. Kipling's parents are both scientists, so he is a genius. Genes are very important. I think we should let their good genes continue instead of letting Sylvia ruin the hope of that.
Clyde? Sylvia glared at him and responded through clenched teeth. What's wrong about my genes? My father serves in the army and my mother is good at business.
In comparison with the gene of scientists, I think your business gene is just too worldly,
said Clyde. Sylvia stayed silent, wondering how on earth did she have colleagues like him. Bye. Sylvia turned around grumpily. As she prepared to go and take a nap, she received a phone call from Aaron. Sylvia picked up Aaron's call with irritation. What? She said.
What do you think?
Aaron sneered.
If I didn't call you this morning, I wouldn't know that you were sleeping together with that guy.
What are you talking about? Sylvia was confused. Did you call me this morning?
Jack answered the call. He even told me not to disturb you,
said Aaron with a cold voice.
That boy is not good.
Brother, how can you say that about him? Before, Sylvia wouldn't feel uncomfortable when she heard that, but after seeing how Jack won honor for the country, She had a much better impression of him. "He is a scientist," she said. "He's nothing like you and other shallow businessmen." Aaron thought that he had heard her wrong.
"How could you call me uncultured?"
He was in disbelief.
"When we listed the company, who was the one who called me wise? Who was the one who complimented me on my sharp acumen?"
"I hadn't seen the world back then," Sylvia said unceremoniously. "When you leave your country and really see the world, your horizon will broaden. I find that businessmen like you are too boring. All you talk about is money and interest." Aaron was furious and he chuckled sarcastically.
"All right. You should go look for Jack then, if he is interesting enough for you. But I'm warning you, the whole family disapproves and I will never accept him. I'm also warning you, don't you dare sleep in the same room as him again."
"I was working and I was sleeping on the floor. Nothing was going on between us."
"There were other guys with you, weren't there? Why couldn't they protect him at night?"
Aaron was skeptical.
"I fell in love with your sister-in-law back when we were sleeping in the same room. She really captured my heart and soul."
"All right. I'm going to take an afternoon nap. Goodbye." Aaron was frustrated when Sylvia hung up on him. He quickly said to April, who was reading a book beside him,
"I think I underestimated that little mute, Jack. He completely brainwashed Sylvia after just a day over there. She called me an uncultured businessman. Ridiculous."
April looked up from her book and pondered for a moment. Now that you mention it, you are a little uncultured. After all, money is a material good. Let it go, won't you?" Women these days. They treat money like a treasure when they don't have it, but they despise it once they've had enough of it. Sylvia snuck into the master bedroom quietly. Jack was already asleep. He was probably tired out from the day. He was in a deep slumber, and she could see his chest rise and fall with each breath. Sylvia snuck into the duvet and fell asleep within minutes. She never had a problem taking afternoon naps, and Clyde was still downstairs with the rest. This gave her the peace of mind to rest properly. She slept until it was dark outside. She turned groggily in her bed, then suddenly came into contact with a soft and warm body. She put her leg over and hugged it close to herself. She only realized that something was not quite right after a while. She opened her eyes and saw a pair of pink lips and a sculptured nose in front of her. She could also make out his long eyelashes. His eyes were closed and he appeared to be in deep sleep. He wasn't awakened by her movement, and he drew in closer to her with a contented expression on his face. Sylvia was in a daze for a few seconds before she shouted abruptly and jolted up. Jack was finally awakened by her exclamation, and he sat up quickly. He rubbed his eyes groggily and asked,
"What's wrong?"
"I should be asking you that. Why are you sleeping beside me?" Sylvia didn't want to recall how she wrapped her leg around him earlier. Jack looked at her with confusion before coming to his senses and whispered,
"I wanted you to wake up for some steak, but I couldn't bear to do so when you looked so comfortable. I wanted to wait for you to wake up, but I fell asleep while waiting. Let's go have steak, since you're up now."
"No!" Sylvia was too concerned to get angry. "If you're not going out to events, you shouldn't go out at all. It's too messy out there. We can't afford for you to get hurt. We'll all be sacked if something happens to you." Jack was anxious. He promised to take her out for steak. "Let's eat in the suite then. We can all have steak tonight," Sylvia said. Jack frowned, but he nodded his head as Sylvia got up to order them dinner. Jack glanced at the indentation she left in the mattress. He could almost smell a waft of sweet scent. Her scent. He drew in closer to where she had been lying and sniffed the linen before burying his head into the duvet. That night, Sylvia ordered 5 steaks, different flavors. When the steaks were served, Jack came downstairs. The table was long, yet he sat right beside Sylvia. "I was worried that you might not like steak, so I ordered spaghetti for you." Sylvia gave him the only spaghetti on the table. Jack looked at it and frowned. "Don't you like it? Mr. Maxwell said that you like it." Sylvia was a little worried. Jack lowered his head and wrote her a note.
"I was going to offer you my steak."
Sylvia read the note and smiled. For some reason, she felt warm. You gave me yours on the plane. As I've said before, what I had was enough, and I've received your kindness. The steak wasn't well done, so Sylvia spent some time cutting off a piece. Jack spent a short while looking at her plate, then quickly dragged her plate to him. Oi, what are you doing? Before Sylvia finished talking, he took her knife and fork. He lowered his head and cut the steak into small pieces, quickly and neatly. He did it easily. Impressive, Sylvia said, praising him. You're good at that. Jack nodded, gave her a shy smile, and said, I used to dissect animals for my mother. Sylvia didn't know what to say. Somehow, she lost her appetite. After he was finished cutting the steak, Jack pushed the plate back to Sylvia. Sylvia looked at Clyde and Carlo, who were still struggling with their steaks, and said, it's so nice having someone cut my steak for me. He made it so easy. Yummy. While chewing, she closed her eyes to focus on the food in her mouth. Her face made her colleagues jealous. Carlo snorted and said to Clyde, Dude, I guess it's her first time having a man cut her steak. It's a bit pathetic, though. She's about 26 and unmarried. She doesn't even have a boyfriend. Sylvia's smile froze on her face. That was hurtful. Jeremy never cut steak for her. When he came home for vacation, they mostly made meals together with their families. Sometimes they went out to have special continental food in Rosewood City. Jack wasn't looking at Sylvia's face. However, he believed every word Carlo said. He wrote her a note. I'll cut steaks for you every single day. Sylvia's hurt heart was slightly healed at that moment, but she still felt a little sour and bitter. Sitting in front of them, Carlo yelled, Mr. Jack, I don't know how to cut my steak either. Can you please help me too? Jack glanced at him, shook his head, and wrote, I don't know you well. Carlo didn't know what to say. Sylvia laughed happily and even made a face at him. You deserve this, she thought. Jack looked at her confusedly. He didn't understand why she had suddenly burst into a smile. He paused briefly, feeling delighted, even though he didn't really know what was going on. He wanted to see her smile every day. She looked like a little fox when she smiled. At 9 p.m., Sylvia's phone rang before she went to sleep. Seeing the number on the screen, she paused. Her heart ached a little. Jack walked over and pointed at her phone to remind her. I'm not answering that. Sylvia rejected the call. Jack spent a while gazing at her with confusion, then went to bed. 2 minutes later, Sylvia received a message from Jeremy which said, I just want to know how your trip is going in Paris. Sylvia dropped the phone. She lay down for a while, then sat up again and picked up her phone. She wanted to reply to his message, but her sanity was telling her not to. She couldn't fall asleep. She tossed and turned. Abruptly, Jack asked her in a deep voice, What's wrong? Did I wake you up? Sylvia felt apologetic. Jack sat up from his bed, then walked over to her and said, There is acute insomnia and there is chronic insomnia. Acute insomnia is further divided into psychological insomnia and episodic insomnia. There is maintenance insomnia. All right, enough. Sylvia knew when he was going to head into a lecture and interrupted him impatiently. I'm having psychological insomnia. I'm troubled over my relationship. Jack frowned, extended his graceful fingers, and started counting. Relationships can be classified into family, friendship, romantic. Romantic, Sylvia said, interrupting him again. Jack was silent. Sylvia inhaled sharply. My ex-boyfriend just called and texted me. I'm feeling a little bothered. Jack pursed his lips and clutched his chest. His chest felt a little stuffy, like a heavy rock was crushing his heart. He felt breathless. He couldn't explain why. You won't understand love even if I tell you. Sylvia thought he didn't know how to respond to her. You've been in a relationship before? Jack whispered. She was troubled over her ex-boyfriend. His chest felt tighter and tighter. Yeah, Sylvia nodded her head. The lights were off, so she couldn't see his discomfort. We were supposed to get married last year, but it didn't happen. We broke up, but now we're working at the same station. It's bothersome. Jack was very uncomfortable now. Will you get married? I don't think so. How can we just move past all that happened between us? Sylvia lay back down. She realized that Jack was still sitting on the edge of the bed and she kicked him playfully. Go to bed now. Jack looked at her tiny foot. She didn't use much force when she kicked him. His heart yearned for more contact. Instead of dodging, he scooted closer to her. What are you doing? He whispered. It's nice when you kick me. Was there something wrong with him? Sylvia recalled that she saw April kick Aaron's ass or thighs to command him to do something when she was at the Bennett mansion. It was kind of awkward thinking about that. It seemed that she wasn't supposed to kick any man, because it was only for romantic couples. Go to bed early. You have to attend the International Physics Conference tomorrow. You were terrific today. Keep up the good work tomorrow, Sylvia said in a serious tone. Jack was thrilled to hear her compliments. It was like the joy he felt when he scored his first 100 points. He lay back down, but it was his turn to have insomnia. After Sylvia confided in him, she was relieved and quickly fell asleep. He was afraid of disturbing her rest, so he kept as still as possible. He used a few physics theories to try to put him to sleep, but to no avail. His chest felt stuffy. At 6:30 a.m., Mr. Maxwell was the first one to wake up. He was the oldest and had trouble getting over the jet lag. In the bathroom, as he squeezed the toothpaste, he looked up and saw Jack staring back at him in the mirror. His hands trembled in shock. Mister, what are you doing up so early? Jack took out a Post-it note and wrote, I had insomnia. Mr. Maxwell adjusted his spectacles. Except for when he was doing his research, it was rare for him to have insomnia. It must have been something serious. Mr. Kipling, are you feeling all right? Mr. Maxwell was very nervous. Jack still needed to attend the international conference, and there couldn't be an accident. No. Jack lowered his head, put a hand on his chest, and said, Here, not comfortable. I feel annoyance. Mr. Maxwell gave a start. I've never heard that before. It's not your heart, is it? Jack shook his head. Does it hurt? Mr. Maxwell asked. Are you having difficulty breathing? Jack shook his head again. Mr. Maxwell felt troubled. Did you experience anything special before this condition started? Or did it happen suddenly? Jack thought for a moment, then wrote, I talked to Sylvia. About what? Ex-boyfriend. Mr. Maxwell stayed silent for a short while. He put a fist before his lips, coughed slightly, and then said with a bitter smile, Mr. Kipling, you were not ill. You're jealous. Jack blinked and wrote, I'm not. Well, you are jealous of Miss Bennett's ex-boyfriend, Mr. Maxwell said helplessly. Serving a young man who had a terribly low EQ was not an easy thing to do. Imagine Miss Bennett with her future boyfriend. She walks past you, holding a man's hand. Jack carefully pictured that and felt even more heavy-hearted than yesterday. He breathed deeply, then said with a dry voice, I can't even breathe. Mr. Maxwell nodded, saying, Yes, that's it. You like Miss Bennet. Jack wrote, I know. You know nothing, thought Mr. Maxwell. By like, he patiently explained to Jack, I meant that you want to be with her, to kiss her, hug her, and sleep with her. Jack's white face reddened, and his hands started shaking. He nodded quickly and then wrote tremblingly, Yes, I wanted to sleep on the ground with her when I saw her sleeping on the ground.
That's not what I meant.
Mr. Maxwell glanced outside the bathroom, then lowered his voice and said,
I meant two people when they make children. You should know that.
Jack's eyes popped. He surely knew about that. His mother was a biologist. He clearly knew how every type of animal made babies. But humans? He pictured Sylvia naked. Then his cheeks turned even redder than before. Shyly but expectantly, he said,
Yes, I want to have a baby with her.
He was so excited that he wasn't even using his pen. Mr. Maxwell was shocked as Jack was already thinking about having a baby.
Mr. Kipling, you can't have a baby with Miss Bennet until you two are legally married. Then we'll get married.
Jack nodded. Soon afterward, he lowered his head and said,
But she hasn't forgotten about her ex-boyfriend. They work in the same police station. Will they be together every day?
No, Mr. Maxwell comforted him.
They have broken up, meaning that there was a conflict between them, or they weren't the perfect match for each other, or he didn't care about Miss Bennet enough. So, you should take the opportunity to be nice to her in the upcoming couple of days. You need to let her know how good you are. Show her your personality and charm, you know? Today, at the International Conference of Physics, show her the best you can do. She will think that you're the most outstanding one. And, of course, you need to seduce her. Use your personality, charm, and pretty face. Do you understand me? Seduce?
Jack pulled his collar together and felt shy. Mr. Maxwell looked at him with satisfaction. Not even a man could resist a face like that, let alone a girl like Miss Bennet, who was obviously still a virgin.
Go. There's no need to worry over this. Mr. Maxwell comforted him. The better you perform, the more unattractive Officer Bennet's ex-boyfriend will be.
Jack nodded his head with hesitance as Mr. Maxwell hurried him out of the bathroom. He walked to the master bedroom in a daze. Sylvia was still sleeping. As he tiptoed his way back to the bed, Mr. Maxwell's words were still on his mind. He couldn't fall asleep as an idea came to him. He quietly removed his pajamas, leaving only his underwear on. He looked at himself and felt embarrassed, but he uncovered himself and pretended to fall asleep. After about 10 minutes, Sylvia woke up and laid in her bed for a moment before sitting up. When she turned to look at the bed, all her sleepiness was gone in a second. Jack was naked with his back against her. From her angle, she could see his slender spine and perky buttocks. She didn't expect him to be so voluptuous. She had the urge to pinch him. His pale and smooth skin was even more delicate than her own. He was like a treasure, and she felt she should be ashamed of herself as a woman. Although his body wasn't buff and muscular, he was elegant and graceful. He induced the urge in her to protect him. Sylvia was still examining him secretly. She had seen Jeremy and Aaron's bodies before. Their bodies were battered with scars, but his skin was a flawless canvas. Suddenly, Jack stirred from his stillness. Sylvia quickly laid back down and pretended that she was still asleep. After a while, she opened her eyes and he turned to face her. Sylvia's heart was fluttering when she saw him again. The scene was too seductive. She had seen his back and now his front. She looked at his sexy chest and the area covered by his underwear. Her heart was beating faster. She remembered when she touched him previously. She remembered how it felt. He was substantial in the front as well. He was like a sleeping beauty. At that moment, his long lashes fluttered open again. Sylvia quickly laid back down. Jack rubbed his eyes and sat up before Sylvia did. Sylvia feigned surprise, saying, "Where are your clothes? Why did you strip naked? How shameless of you!" She quickly covered her eyes and turned away. Jack was scratching his head confused. Impossible! He was sure that she had been awake earlier. Did she not see his body? He got up, walked to her, and squatted down. I'm not shameless, he said pitifully. Sylvia opened her eyes, and when she saw the delicate creature before her, her heart was beating even faster. When he squatted down, it made his particular area even more sexy and prominent. She turned and threw her blanket over him. You are shameless. You're walking around naked in front of me. You should be careful and have clear boundaries with women, you know? This is very rude of you. I'm not. Jack was traumatized that she had called him rude. I don't know why my clothes are off. I must have thought it was too warm last night. Was it? Sylvia frowned. I didn't think so. The air conditioning is on. In fact, I felt it was a little too cold. She reached out and touched his exposed arm. It was very smooth. Your arm is so chilly. Jack blinked quickly. He was flustered and he didn't want to be exposed. Now that you mention it, I do feel a little cold now. Sylvia was speechless. Go put on some clothes. He was curled up in a blanket and blinked innocently. His cheeks were blushing. I'm shy. Could you grab them for me? Sylvia paused briefly. If another man said that to her, she would want to punch him in the face. However, as those words escaped his lips, her heart skipped a beat. She took the clothes and handed them to him. He immediately turned around and put them on. After getting dressed, he turned back and asked her with a low voice, What do you think about my body? I want a girlfriend and I'm worried that she may not like my body. Sylvia was stunned, then felt slightly sad. Even the puppy wanted a girlfriend. She was still single. She felt as if her puppy was going to abandon her. You're too skinny. You have no muscles. Sylvia snorted and said, Women like strong men. Strong men make them feel safe. Jack looked at his own body and argued, The sense of security cannot be given by a good body. Believe it or not, I'm able to defeat 5 muscular men with my technology within 2 seconds. Sylvia nodded and said, I believe it. I know that you have many great inventions, but think about why there are so many stars who have perfect bodies. That's the current aesthetical standard. Jack lowered his head silently. He was so disappointed and frustrated. Sylvia instantly felt a little guilty. He only wanted a girlfriend. She shouldn't have busted his confidence. Well, in fact, your body isn't so bad. I'll give you a 7 out of 10. Sylvia mumbled. Only 7? Jack wasn't happy. I usually get a 10 out of 10. Sylvia didn't know how to respond. Even her shameless brother gave himself a 9. Whatever, he's a scientist, she thought. Made her numb all over, but she held it in. Suddenly, the car in front of them slammed on their brakes. Jack slid down from her shoulder and she caught his head with her hands. He readjusted himself and continued sleeping in the nook of her arm. Sylvia looked down at him. She had the urge to reach out and ruffle his hair. She felt as if she had a new pet. After a while of holding his head, she gently laid him down on her lap. Sylvia woke him up when they arrived at the convention hall. Jack got up, his black eyes still in a daze. She had the urge to reach out and pinch his cheeks again. Wake up, we're at the event hall, Sylvia said, reminding him. So fast? Jack rubbed his eyes and his fringe fell onto his forehead. His hair looked messy. Your fringe, Sylvia said. Jack tried to fix his hair, but he only made it messier. Sylvia reached out and smoothed it. He looked down at her, his eyes watery. Sylvia swallowed nervously when she caught his gaze. It was like she was taking care of Richard. Her hand was patting his head. Jack looked down, nuzzling his head into her palms. His soft hair brushed against her hands, and it was electrifying. She quickly withdrew. Jack was disappointed. He wished that she would continue to pat his head forever. Mr. Maxwell feigned ignorance and said, We should head out. The security checks were more stringent this time. Every invitation could only admit 2 persons. Sylvia went in with Jack, who was still pretending to be his girlfriend. She had her arm wrapped around his arm. There were a lot more people at the event today than the exhibition the day before. When they walked in, they realized that Jack's seat was 5th from the last row. Professor Wilson and other scientists were also seated in that row. Professor Wilson was shocked to see Jack there.
Jack, why are you seated so far back when you're going to be speaking later?
Jack sat down with Sylvia without saying a word. Professor Wilson was angry.
This is too much. They are discriminating against us. They look down on us, those bunch of arrogant fools. You are a scientist that proposed the nano-quantum theory. You were far better than most of them sitting up front.
Sylvia was angry as well. Forget it. They are too conceited. Why don't we just take our leave? Jack shook his head.
We can't go. We need to show them our technology.
Sylvia was stunned. In that moment, she felt proud and in awe of him. Although he was usually a little dazed, he never tripped up during crucial moments. When the conference started, various scientists and physicists stepped up and spoke in English, using a lot of technical jargon. Sylvia couldn't follow the talk until a Japanese man took the stage. Professor Wilson was in shock.
Jack, isn't this what you're supposed to talk about later?
Sylvia was shocked and turned to look at Jack. He was nodding his head. You're up after another 2 speakers, aren't you? Sylvia swallowed hard. If he went up to repeat what the previous speaker had just elaborated, he would be deemed as a joke of the conference. It would have a disastrous effect on their country's image. Jack nodded, looking serious. That look wasn't often seen on his face. What are you gonna do? Sylvia panicked. Do you have other drafts? Can you repeat one of those speeches that you've made back in the country?
No,
said Professor Wilson.
That wouldn't be a problem if we were at a domestic conference. However, this is an international meeting. If we don't have a new and creative project, people might think the technological development of our country is falling behind. It might affect our international reputation. These people can't possibly make their speeches in a couple of days. They might have spent years or even over a decade on their projects. The ones who have attended this conference are all elites from all over the world. Every speaker was strictly selected.
Professor Wilson paused briefly, then took out a speech draft of his own from his bag and said,
I prepared this for the physics conference that'll take place next month. Take a look at it. It's not as good as yours, but you'll at least have something to talk about.
Jack glanced at the draft, then shook his head and said,
You've been working on this project for years. I can't take it. Are you aware of our situation now?
Professor Wilson got anxious.
Be quiet. I'll come up with another draft,
Jack said, then closed his eyes. Professor Wilson wanted to say something else, but Sylvia stopped him and whispered, Never mind. I think he's confident, or he wouldn't say that. I believe he knows what he can and cannot do. Professor Wilson paused briefly, then gave Sylvia a glance with a weird expression and said,
Yeah, I've known him for a long time. He is young and very talented. Girl, I'm surprised that you trust him so much. No wonder he chose you to be his girlfriend. He never had a girlfriend before, and now he has you.
Sylvia blushed awkwardly. He turned to see Jack from time to time, but found him as quiet as an eminent monk who was immersed in meditation. After the Japanese scientist, a physicist from Singapore was about to finish his speech as well. Sylvia was so nervous that her palms were sweating. Jack stayed motionless. She couldn't tell if he could do it or not. It wasn't like yesterday. Losing that argument yesterday would be no big deal. Yet if he failed the same speech today, he would bring shame on his country. As the Singapore scientist finished his speech, the host said,
Next, let's welcome Jack Kipling, a physicist from America. Coincidentally, he is going to talk about nano-border theory too. As Mr. Kipling made his way here, I believe the result of his study is not the same as what Mr. Oda has. Or, he might have made a new breakthrough.
Sylvia was angry. Those shameless people stole the work of someone else and made it sound so reasonable. There was an applause. Jack opened his eyes and slowly stood up. He walked past Sylvia and down the stairs, step by step. The light poured on his back. He was wearing a suit, looking slim, but composed and humble. He seemed far away from the mortal world. Sylvia clenched her fist and looked at his back. He did not have a muscular body, yet at that moment, she felt that he was standing high and tall. Jack walked onto the stage and stood behind the microphone. With a deep voice, he began speaking.
Yes, I was going to talk about the nano-border theory, which I've spent 3 years working on. However, Mr. Oda from Japan has already made a speech about that.
Once his voice faded, the people on the scene started whispering to each other. He was clearly trying to say that Mr. Oda stole his work.
Mr. Oda chuckled coldly. Mr. Kipling, are you going to blame me for your lack of preparedness and content? It's okay if you haven't prepared well enough. You can always choose to give up the talk today. There's no need to defame others like this.
There was a wave of laughter in the audience. Sylvia was furious. It was the first time she had met anyone as despicable and shameless as Mr. Oda. Not only did he copy someone else's idea, he was the pot calling the kettle black. Jack looked calm and collected. He replied to Mr. Oda saying,
Thank goodness I didn't devote all my time in the past 3 years to a single research project. To prove myself, I will be sharing my research on the space black hole theory. I haven't written a script for this presentation as I didn't expect to be talking about it today. If I don't speak as well as I would like to, I hope you understand.
Jack bowed to the audience before he started talking about space wormholes. Sylvia was sitting in the audience listening to his exhilarating talk. Everyone grew silent and listened intently. Professor Wilson remarked,
This guy is even better than his parents. He managed to complete 2 remarkable projects in 3 years. He's speaking so eloquently on stage without a proper script. He will win the Nobel Prize sooner or later. After all, he's still so young.
Sylvia nodded her head in agreement. If she was in awe of Jack before, he was her idol now. She had grown up in a military family and she was deeply patriotic by nature. She admired the people who contributed to the progress of her home country and had never felt as much respect for anyone until this moment.
You're a lucky girl.
Professor Wilson looked at her enviously.
4 years ago, I wanted to introduce my granddaughter to him, but he didn't fancy her. You should treasure him. Although he isn't the most romantic man, he might be a little dull. He is loyal and sincere. You should be proud of him and his accomplishments, not to mention his looks. I dare say he is more handsome than a lot of the celebrities out there.
Sylvia was embarrassed. Professor Wilson didn't know that she was just putting on an act with Jack, but he was telling her his sincere sentiments. Sylvia looked over at Jack, who was still on stage. The halo around him glowed even brighter than some of the celebrities she had met. He didn't even lose to Jeremy. Although he wasn't as hunky as him, he was much more intelligent and knowledgeable. After 20 minutes, Jack concluded his talk. The audience was silent for a minute before they erupted into a loud round of applause. Jack glanced over at Mr. Oda.
Do you still think I need to find an excuse for myself?
Mr. Oda was glaring at him awkwardly.
I admit that you did a good job, but you shouldn't accuse me of stealing your work. This is the result of my own hard work. I never said that you copied my work, but I will be publishing my nanotechnology report on the American Physics Research website tomorrow. Everyone can see for themselves then.
Jack walked off stage after that. Everyone was looking at him, the young man. When he walked over, Sylvia turned to look at him. Before she could say anything, he bent over and planted a peck on her cheek. She caught a waft of ginger, the smell of his shampoo. His lips were warm and tender, like a feather caressing her cheeks. Sylvia was stunned. When she came to her senses, she realized that many people were looking their way. Her cheeks turned bright pink. It was the first time anyone kissed her other than Jeremy. Although it was just a simple way of greeting overseas, she was still an innocent girl. "What are you doing?" Jack sat down and Sylvia glared at him. Jack scratched the back of his head and said innocently, "I saw everyone else kiss their wives after they were done with their talk. Although we're only putting on an act, we should try our best not to blow our cover." Sylvia was speechless. He made a good point. Jack turned to grin at himself when Sylvia didn't say anything in reply. He looked like a child who had just snuck a candy. If he had known that she was so easily convinced, he would have kissed her lips instead. Jack was staring at her lips now. Sylvia was looking at him too. "Do you think I was charismatic on stage?" he asked. Sylvia was suddenly flustered. She couldn't bring herself to say all the compliments she had thought earlier. She stuttered as she nodded her head. "Yeah, you were. You were super charismatic. From now on, you are my idol." Jack's eyes lit up as he shyly lowered his head. He started to fish out his pen and notepad with a bit of hesitance. "I don't want to be your idol. I want to be your boyfriend." It was too sudden. She felt a little faint. An internationally renowned scientist was asking her to be his girlfriend at such an important event. It felt unreal. She could brag about this for the rest of her life. Although he had brought this up before, she had always considered him a child before she witnessed his capabilities. Why did he suddenly bring it up again? Oh yeah, she remembered he had just spoken about finding himself a girlfriend that morning. Was he going through puberty? He seemed eager to get into a relationship. Jack's proposal was interrupted by Professor Wilson. He nodded his head with disappointment. "Brat, you were awesome," Professor Wilson said and punched Jack's chest playfully. "In the 3 years that you fell ill, you managed to develop 2 amazing research projects. You're going to drive all of us old guys mad." Sylvia heaved a sigh of relief. She respected Jack, but getting into a relationship was another matter. When Professor Wilson had finished, Jack turned to look at her again, prepared to show her the same note. "Pay attention to the presentation." Sylvia snatched the note out of his hands. Jack shook his head and continued writing. "I already know everything they're talking about." Sylvia was speechless. She pitied these old researchers who had devoted their lives to their work. "I don't know about their research," she said. Jack frowned and wrote, "I'll wait for your reply then. I'll treat you well if you are willing to be my girlfriend." Sylvia's ears were hot. It was the first time someone's written words were more impactful than what they said in real life. She focused on what the scientists were presenting on stage, but she noticed that Jack wasn't listening to the talk at all. He was still scribbling away on his notepad. Sylvia asked curiously, "Are you taking notes? I thought you said you already knew all these things. Aren't you being a little too serious?" Jack looked a little lost before he whispered, "I'm writing a love letter." Sylvia didn't know what to say. He was so serious and she felt so nervous and stressed. "Writing a love letter is even more difficult than writing scientific reports." Jack sounded annoyed and upset. "I've spent a long time on it, but failed to come up with even a few lines." Sylvia was touched and also amused. Back in school, she had received some love letters, but at that time, she was all about Jeremy. Later on, she started working. The world was busy, and not many people had the ability and time to write love letters. "Perhaps it's because you don't like me enough," she said. "No, I like you." Jack strongly disagreed. He shook his head. "Do you like me for who I am, or because you want a girlfriend? After all, I'm the only female friend you have. You may want to think it through," Sylvia said. All right, let's not talk about that. Currently, you need to figure out why those Japanese people know about your report. Jack ignored the last part of her speech but continued focusing on the love letter. Sylvia didn't believe him, so he had to give her the perfect love letter to make her change her mind. Sylvia found his reaction annoying and funny. He had become a scientist who was addicted to writing love letters. The conference was over. Jack prepared to leave, but people started to surround him. The speech he gave tonight might not have been the best speech, but his on-spot performance and what Mr. Oda did impressed people the most. Christine from Europe came over, along with Mr. Oda, and said to Jack, smilingly, "Mr. Kipling, do you fancy afternoon tea in Mr. Oda's manor? We are all devoted to physics and will be talking about the subject. To be frank, we are working for the benefit of mankind. Perhaps you'll find that what happened between you and Mr. Oda is a total misunderstanding when we sit down and talk. Don't American people always say that we should make friends instead of enemies?" Sylvia couldn't dislike the two of them more. They stole someone else's work and shamelessly called it a misunderstanding? She turned to Jack and found him as absent-minded as ever. She couldn't help but respond on behalf of him. "I'm afraid American people see friendship differently from you guys. For us, it's about being responsible and considerate." Christine and Oda's expressions changed. "Are all American women so impolite and undereducated?" said Mr. Oda coldly. Sylvia was infuriated. Before she argued back, Jack held her hand and said, "Let's go. Don't talk to incapable people." His words pissed off Mr. Oda. "Boy, don't be arrogant. You were still a baby when I became famous." "Yeah, I was better than you when I was a baby," Jack said and left, holding Sylvia's hand. Mr. Oda looked at him angrily and said, "I didn't know that he had the other draft." "I think we both underestimated him." Christine narrowed her eyes and said, "He's very likely to win the next Nobel Prize in Physics." "He is not qualified," said Mr. Oda through clenched teeth. Christine glanced at him, then continued, "I've received some messages saying that someone has been working on the dark energy and has made progress." "You think it's him?" Mr. Oda was stunned. Christine shook her head. "I'm not sure, but we have to be careful. This guy is so talented even at such a young age. Did you listen to his talk just now? Given his understanding of black holes, I wouldn't be surprised if he went on to study the subject of dark matter energy." Mr. Oda looked shocked. "If he has a breakthrough in that area, it could be utilized in every aspect." Christine squinted her eyes. "It'll be best if we could keep him in Paris, just in case." They exchanged a knowing look. Jack emerged from the hall along with Sylvia before he said unhappily, "He bullied you." Sylvia cursed, saying, "Now I know there are shameless people in every field." "Yeah, let's not talk to him in the future." Jack nodded his head. He would remember Mr. Oda from now on. Sylvia found it funny. "I won't be encountering him anymore. You, on the other hand." "Mr. Kipling, let's get in the car." Clyde drove over. In the car, Sylvia angrily recounted what had happened in the hall to the rest of the group. Mr. Maxwell frowned and said, "Mr. Kipling's research on nanotechnology is highly classified information. How could it be leaked out? Is there a spy among us?" At that moment, the atmosphere was tense. Carlo quickly raised his hand and said, "Not me. I didn't even know what kind of research Mr. Kipling was doing until now." Mr. Maxwell glanced over at Sylvia. "Not her," Jack said as he scooted closer to Sylvia. Sylvia was touched by his gesture but understood Mr. Maxwell's suspicions. She was the one who stayed in the same room as Jack. She was the most likely candidate who would have seen him rehearse his script. Mr. Maxwell, my father works in the military and my grandfather was in the army too. I would never do such a thing, Sylvia said. I think if we're going to look into this, we might want to focus on the laboratory assistants at the research center. Right, Clyde said quickly. We're all transferred from the police station. We don't know anything about research. Mr. Maxwell sighed. So, you spoke about black holes. Jack nodded his head, then paused for a long while before saying, It was an urgent predicament. I had no choice. You must have stood out. I'm just worried, Mr. Maxwell said. The original plan was for you to return 3 days later. I think we should move the date forward. We'll leave tomorrow. Why? Sylvia was puzzled. Are you worried those people would hurt Mr. Kipling? Shouldn't they be used to this? There are always going to be people more knowledgeable than others. They can't possibly hurt whoever's better than them. Does it have to do with your secret research project? Clyde asked. Mr. Maxwell was silent. Clyde and Sylvia looked at each other before he started the car. Let's return tomorrow then. But we would need a reasonable excuse. He is supposed to attend the French Research Center dinner gala. Now that we're leaving early, we might look even more suspicious. Let's just claim that we caught the person who leaked the information and we have to go back to deal with the matter, Sylvia said. That's a good idea. Mr. Maxwell nodded his head and looked at Jack. What do you think? Jack was frustrated. If they went back, it would mean that he wouldn't be able to sleep in the same room as Sylvia anymore, and she would also have to work in the same place as her ex-boyfriend. Mr. Kipling, what are you thinking about? Nothing. Jack shook his head. He appeared dejected. He felt troubled, so he decided to continue working on his love letter. Mr. Kipling, what are you doing? Seeing him writing leisurely under such a critical situation, Mr. Maxwell questioned him. A love letter. Jack poked his ears with his pen and said, I'm not good at it. You guys have any suggestions? Sylvia nearly passed out. The situation wasn't good, yet he was still thinking about writing love letters. Carlo glanced at Sylvia in a meaningful way, then laughed and asked Jack, Who is the love letter for? I'm not telling you. Jack lowered his head, then sneakily glanced at Sylvia with a faint smile. Sylvia wanted to crawl into a deep hole. Please, you're making it so obvious, she thought. Clyde laughed and said, You are amazing. We're all over 40. We have forgotten how to write love letters long ago. But I do know that a love letter is just for expressing your true heart. Just write down whatever crosses your mind. That'll be enough. Jack closed his eyes and fell into subtle thoughts. Not long after they returned to the hotel, Mr. Maxwell rebooked the plane tickets. That night, Clyde, Sylvia, and Carlo held a small meeting in a room. I've received a phone call from Axel. According to him, 2 suspicious people showed up near the hotel earlier today, after we came back. Clyde showed the others the picture from Axel. 2 black people, tall and strong. Carlo glanced at the picture, then clicked his tongue and said, Very strong. I think they're both good fighters. Clyde continued with a serious look. We were sent here to make sure everything will be all right. Before we left, Sergeant told us this may or may not be a safe trip. I guess our worst guess is very likely to become real. Now, I only wish we could leave this place safely tomorrow. Who are they? Who do they work for? Sylvia frowned and asked. We don't know much about science, said Clyde in a low voice, but we do watch TV. We know that some scientific technologies deliver major improvements in terms of economy, even military. Are you saying that? Carlo was surprised.
That's nothing that we should know about. Clyde raised a hand and interrupted him. Our job is to protect him. If we need to face severe danger, we need to put Mr. Jack in the safest place.
Carlo and Sylvia nodded together. Sylvia had served as a police officer for years, but it was the first time she carried out such an important mission. She was heavy-hearted.
And there is one other thing.
Clyde abruptly turned to Sylvia.
If you decided to be with Mr. Jack, you need to be strong and be prepared. Things like this may happen again.
Sylvia opened her mouth, but the situation felt complicated. Clyde didn't let her talk, but continued.
I'm not sure what stage you're at now. I'm only reminding you. Being with him might bring you glory. You will be proud of him, but at the same time, you will need to take risks for him too.
Sylvia didn't know what to say. As the meeting was over, she came out of that room and went upstairs. Hearing her footsteps, Jack quickly came out of his room, holding a note with a shy face.
Do you have an answer yet? About what I said to you before?
Jack asked. Sylvia paused, managing not to react immediately. Jack took out the second note.
Girlfriend.
You're still thinking about getting a girlfriend? Now? Sylvia didn't even know how to react. Sometimes she honestly admired him for being so innocent. Jack nodded. Whatever was happening at the time, making Sylvia his girlfriend was the most important thing to him. Sylvia looked at him, the adult. He was grown, yet he was so pure and innocent. She was proud of knowing him and didn't mind spending more time with him. However, Clyde was right. To be with him, she needed to take risks. Even if she didn't consider herself, she ought to spare a thought for her own family. Why do you like me then? Sylvia asked softly. Because I look pretty? Did he follow her around at the police station because of her looks? Jack blinked several times, looking confused. Sylvia continued saying, No matter how pretty I look now, it'll fade with time. Jack lowered his head and wrote, You'll look pretty even when you're old. I know that. Sylvia nodded her head. Even when I'm old, I'll be the prettiest old lady amongst all the other old ladies. I can't get together with you, though. You're my idol. I respect you, but I don't harbor any romantic feelings for you. Besides, I haven't really forgotten my ex-boyfriend. Jack was stunned. He was staring at her blankly. He was in a daze as if he refused to believe what she had just said. Sylvia felt bad, but she continued to say, I'm sorry, but I think we can only be friends. I'm sure you'll be someone successful in the future. It's not you, it's me. I just can't give my heart to you. Jack was shattered as if someone had just dug out his heart. He felt even more uncomfortable than last night when he heard about her ex-boyfriend. His heart ached. He tugged on his hair forcefully, pulling out a few tufts of hair. He was at a loss as to what to do now. After a while, he stuttered, I'll wait for you then. Sylvia felt sorry when she saw how despondent he looked. You don't have to wait for me. I might reconcile with my ex-boyfriend. I might even marry him. After all, I haven't completely forgotten about him. Jack's face was as pale as a sheet. He couldn't wrap his head around why this relationship had ended before it even began. Jack felt agony when he thought about the possibility of Sylvia hugging and sleeping with another man.
I want to see a picture of your ex-boyfriend,
Jack said. He had to know how this man looked, for her to be so smitten with him. Sylvia felt terrible, but the last thing she wanted was to lead him on. She went onto Jeremy's social media account and opened up a picture of him. Jack examined the man closely. He was wearing his army uniform and looked tall and hunky. His gaze was sharp and he looked smart and clean. Jack looked at his lanky arms. He put down his arms dejectedly but refused to give up.
I'll start working out from now on.
You're not him even if you bulk up, Sylvia said harshly. The light in Jack's eyes went out. He walked back to bed, lay down silently, and curled up into a ball like a small baby. Sylvia didn't know what else to say other than to sigh. Although it was noble to be a scientist, she just wanted to be an ordinary citizen for the sake of her family. I'm sorry, Jack. If I were to be with you, you might become a burden in my life. The next day, Sylvia woke up first. She didn't sleep well that night. The flight was at noon, and she had to wake up early to get ready. Jack was wrapped up in a cocoon on his bed. His back was facing her. Mr. Jack, it's time to get up and have breakfast. The bundle of blankets shook its head. Sylvia repeated herself. We're going back to America in the afternoon. He turned to look at her. Let me lie by myself for a moment. The person I like doesn't want me anymore. His hurt eyes reminded Sylvia of a sad and lost puppy. It tugged at her heartstrings. Sylvia bit her lip and said, If you don't mind, we can still be friends. Jack lowered his eyes. He didn't want to be friends with her. He wanted to be her boyfriend, to hold her hand, to kiss her, and to hold her. As he stayed silent, Sylvia forced herself to stand up and said, I'm going downstairs. The breakfast was served, yet Jack was still upstairs. Mr. Maxwell went up to find him. He was silently sitting on the bed. As Mr. Maxwell went into the room, he said frustratedly, I know you want me to have breakfast, but I have no appetite. Sylvia said that she doesn't like me and she wants to marry her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend is tall and muscular. I don't have muscles. I'm not as good as him. Mr. Maxwell gave a bitter smile and said, Mr. Jack, it's not the time to think about that. We should leave. We'll be in trouble if they find out about your dark energy study. Jack shook his head with disappointment and said, I'm not in the mood to keep working on the dark energy. Mr. Maxwell didn't know what to say. He was desperate. If we stay here, Miss Bennet might be in danger. Mr. Maxwell felt he had to say that. Jack finally raised his head and looked at Mr. Maxwell. Get changed. Mr. Maxwell handed him his clothes and then started packing his suitcase. Jack got dressed and went downstairs. By that time, Sylvia and the others were ready to go. Axel returned to the team, and they headed to the airport. As they arrived at the airport and prepared to check in, a group of police officers came over. The leader of the group was a French policeman. He said, Mr. Jack, Mr. Oda from Japan has reported the case. You are suspected of plagiarizing his work. Please come with us. We'll make things clear. Everyone was shocked. Sylvia said with anger, Mr. Oda stole his work. Didn't you see the report that Mr. Jack published on the website this morning? The group of French policemen glanced at each other, then responded with, Sorry, we didn't see. Sylvia returned to Jack and asked him, Didn't you say that you published it this morning? Jack paused briefly, then murmured, I forgot. I fell in love. Sylvia couldn't say a word. Please come with us. A policeman moved forward, attempting to put handcuffs on Jack's wrist. Carlo hurriedly stood before Jack and said, We are from America. We are invited to the International Conference of Physics. You have no right to arrest any of us. This is supported by international public law. We cannot let him leave. If you resist, there might be bad consequences. The group of French policemen immediately drew out their pistols. Seeing the scene unfold, the other passengers hurriedly ran away, then turned back to watch and take pictures. Jack stayed silent and stepped forward. I'll go with you, he said, without looking at Sylvia, who couldn't believe her ears. You're crazy! Sylvia pulled his arm and said loudly, They said they'll make things clear, but it'll be hard for you to come out. I can't let you and the others get hurt. Jack pushed her away and let the policeman put handcuffs on him. Mr. Jack, don't worry. I'll talk to your lawyer right now, said Mr. Maxwell. Jack nodded. He was then taken away by the policeman. Before getting into the police car, he gave Sylvia a deep glance. Those people are so shameless. Sylvia clenched her fist and said, I wonder if they'll torture him illegally in the police station. Thinking about Jack's thin and weak body, Sylvia doubted if he could take any violence at all.
I don't think so.
Clyde shook his head.
They wouldn't dare to be so brazen. They might just be trying to retain Mr. Jack here to prevent him from returning home.
Mr. Maxwell nodded his head.
It'll be better if they try to do something in the dark. In that case, we could just take care of it quietly and return home. It'll be disastrous if they try to file a lawsuit. The proceedings are long and tiresome. Many cases drag on for years before it's concluded. It's fine for an ordinary person, but our mister has many pressing projects on his hands. If he doesn't return, all these projects will come to a standstill.
Sylvia shuddered at the thought of it. She was a police officer. She understood his point. Although some people are released after a few months, they would have to stay in Paris under close police surveillance, and they wouldn't be allowed to leave. Mr. Maxwell, about the report on nanotechnology, Mr. Jack should have a detailed report on it. We just have to produce a copy for reference to the police.
What if Christine has already struck a deal with the police here?
Clyde interrupted her, saying,
Mr. Oda doesn't have the guts to do this. There are others behind the scenes. No matter what, can we try to bail out Mr. Jack first?
Mr. Maxwell sighed. Mr. Maxwell quickly found an American lawyer, Mr. Melvin, to represent them. Lawyer Melvin brought them to the Paris police station, but the officers denied them the right to see Jack, due to the severity of the matter. They were denying him bail as well. Sylvia said hurriedly, "Can't we compare the nanotechnology report? Any reasonable person would be able to tell who was the one who copied the report." Lawyer Melvin looked at her coldly.
Mr. Oda has managed to reproduce a complete report on the matter as well. Mr. Jack had accused him of plagiarism in public. He is now suing Mr. Jack for defamation. Either Mr. Jack admits to defaming him, or Mr. Oda admits to plagiarism.
Mr. Maxwell shook his head.
Either one of the choices could ruin our Mister's reputation. He wouldn't be able to gain a good standing in the world of physicists in the future. This is a matter of personal integrity.
Sylvia was shocked. All the information was stolen? Who did this?
I already found out. It's someone from our research center.
Mr. Maxwell grimaced.
He has already fled.
Son of a bitch! Sylvia hated people like that. Over the next 2 days, news of Jack getting arrested at the airport spread to America. Aaron called Sylvia that night.
Buy tickets to come home tomorrow and bring your colleagues.
Brother, how could you suggest that? Haven't you seen the news? Sylvia was angry and indignant. He is being framed. They're trying to oppress his talent by using dirty tricks. You didn't see how wonderful he performed at the physics conference.
I didn't say that he did anything wrong. I believe him,
Aaron said, interrupting her.
It's just that the case has become so complicated that it's not something that you, nor your colleagues, can handle. The Physics Society will try its best to get him out, but it will take time. This is a long, drawn-out battle, and you're not of any use over there,
Aaron reminded her, saying,
Don't forget that I'm getting married in a few days' time.
I'm not in the mood to attend your wedding now. Sylvia felt like she had to hide her frustrations over the past few days.
Even if I didn't ask you to come home, your boss will be relaying the order very soon,
Aaron said helplessly. I can't leave now. Sylvia ended the call. How could she leave Jack there and go home alone? She was supposed to protect him. She walked out of the room. Lawyer Melvin, Mr. Maxwell, and the others were still talking about the case in the living room. Seeing her, Mr. Maxwell said,
Mr. Jack's parents are on their way here. They'll probably arrive this afternoon. Thank you for taking care of us over the last couple of days. I have booked tickets for you so that you can leave this afternoon.
Sylvia was going to say something, but Clyde interrupted her and said,
Mr. Maxwell, we are sorry that we couldn't help.
Did you agree to leave too? Sylvia couldn't believe that.
The sergeant called me,
said Clyde with a complicated feeling.
He has asked us to return. We're not helpful here, and there's some other cases to be solved.
But Sylvia didn't want to go.
This is out of our reach. Our job is to keep him safe in Paris, and we did that.
Clyde knew what she was thinking. He interrupted her again and said,
Trust me, Mr. Jack will come home.
I know he will. He's wronged, but how long? Sylvia looked at Mr. Maxwell, wishing to hear a positive answer from him.
We'll try to get him out in a couple of months.
Mr. Maxwell sighed helplessly.
Those people are buying time, and these French people are trying to make things worse. You have your own work to do. It's unnecessary for you to waste your time here. Don't worry. Mr. Jack works for the government, and the government won't give up on him.
Sylvia fell silent. Even Mr. Maxwell told her to go. What could she possibly say? If it happened in Rosewood City, she would be able to help, as her parents were both powerful. But away from home, she couldn't do anything to help him. Thinking about Jack's pitiful eyes, she felt very uncomfortable. She wondered if he would get bullied in the detention house. He was so innocent and vulnerable. He had some high-tech weapons, but the police officers would certainly take those away. At 2 p.m., Sylvia packed her luggage but didn't come out of her room. Mr. Maxwell knocked on her door and said,
Miss Bennett, it's time to leave. Mr. Clyde and the other officers are waiting for you downstairs. Mr. Jack and I will visit you to thank you for your care when we get back to Rosewood City.
Don't say that. We didn't do much. Mr. Maxwell's words made Sylvia feel bad. If she left, would Jack be disappointed when he came out of the detention house? Seeing her struggle, Mr. Maxwell smiled and said,
You have already turned Mr. Jack down. Do not change your mind. Don't give him hope and then tell him again that you still love your ex-boyfriend. That'll be hurtful, won't it?
I'm sorry. Sylvia lowered her head. Her cheeks burned.
It's okay. I understand. Mr. Jack is a scientist and his work scares a lot of people. If other people knew about his work, they'd see him as a pain in the ass. Even the people who were close to him might be affected.
Mr. Maxwell picked up her suitcase and said,
I'll walk you downstairs.
Mr. Maxwell walked Sylvia and her colleagues to their ride. Not long after the car started driving, Sylvia saw another car parked before Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Maxwell politely greeted a man and a woman who might have been Jack's parents. Carlos saw it too. Seeing that Sylvia was upset, he said to her,
We've gained some new experiences the past few days. I admire Mr. Jack, but after all, we aren't from the same world.
Sylvia looked at him confusedly. Carlos sighed and comforted her.
Think about it. His IQ is probably over 200 and yours is probably around 80. The gap between your intelligence is too stark. It will affect your offspring. When he talks to you about protons and nano, you can only talk to him about spicy soup and barbecue. It's tragic.
She was already feeling frustrated, but now she felt like strangling him. Clyde tried to hold back his laughter.
Are you really trying to comfort her?
Carlo felt wronged.
I'm just stating the facts. The two people have to be compatible to be together. Besides, Sylvia is active and extroverted, and Mr. Jack is the complete opposite. He enjoys staying in the quiet lab by himself, sitting and thinking about things. You have to be ready to face these differences if you want to be together.
Sylvia didn't know what to say. He was actually making sense. Jack didn't like to talk, but her brother spoke incessantly. If her parents had a son-in-law like Jack, they'd probably go mad. After a 12-hour-long flight, the plane landed in Rosewood City at night. Erin was with David and Caitlin at the airport waiting. Sylvia was touched when she saw the three of them waiting for her. No matter how big the world was, her small family and her small home was her warm cove for respite. What a miracle that the three of you were here together. Sylvia walked up to them and gave Caitlin a big hug. You think I want to see your father? I was just worried about you. Caitlin tousled Sylvia's hair. If you weren't coming back today, I would have flown to look for you. Don't be dramatic. Sylvia looked at Erin. He stepped backward and said,
I don't want to hug you.
As if she wanted to hug him. Sylvia was speechless but asked, Where's April?
She's at home,
Erin replied coldly.
She wanted to come to see you, but I didn't let her out of the house. Sylvia, since your family is here, we're going to take our leave first. The sergeant has asked us to take a few days off and rest before reporting to duty. You can take your time to adjust your mood at home. Clyde waved goodbye to her. After she got in the car, she quickly asked David, Dad, did they manage to capture that guy who leaked the information from the lab? The country he fled to is refusing to hand over the man. David turned to look at her. Of course, this is temporary. They will have to hand him over eventually. If they don't take a stand, it would encourage everyone to steal intellectual property. How shameless! How could he betray his own country like this? Sylvia growled. The man came back after studying overseas. He was probably bought out by then. David sighed and shook his head. Don't worry about Jack. I received news that someone will be rescuing him soon. His parents are renowned scientists and have plenty of connections. The standing of our country is different, so they wouldn't dare to be brazen. They don't have the guts to do anything too drastic. Sylvia felt reassured when she heard that. Sylvia, do you fancy Jack? You seem very concerned about him, Caitlin said. No, he's just a friend. It's natural for me to show concern about my friends. Not to mention he's someone that I respect a lot. Sylvia lowered her head and said, But what do you guys think about me getting into a relationship with him? When Aaron suddenly pressed on the brake, Sylvia almost fell out of her seat. Brother, what are you doing? You want to be with that dumb boy? Aaron glared at her and said, Are you serious? Sylvia sighed and replied, He's not dumb. He just doesn't like talking. I didn't say that I want to be with him. I just feel that I can give it a try. I'm not with anyone now, am I? Besides, my heart got softened every time I saw him. He's like a puppy of mine. Aaron paused briefly, then nodded and said, I get it. You need a dog. You can have Richard for a while. Sylvia didn't respond. David said, I think it's because she's old enough to be a mother. Her motherly love is affecting her. Caitlin felt speechless. Aaron and his father had a weird way of thinking. Mom, Sylvia turned to Caitlin. I get it. I used to feel the same way. Caitlin nodded. Maybe you can get a real puppy. I'll buy you one tomorrow. Sylvia didn't know what to say. It turned out that her mother didn't understand her feelings. Caitlin gave a bitter smile and said, Your awful brother has already given me headaches. I've had a weird mute son-in-law. I might just die with a headache. Aaron said coldly, Whether he likes to talk isn't important. I don't like talking either. I'm just angry that he could ignore me. It's because of his growth environment. Both his parents are scientists. He spent his entire childhood in the labs. I believe I can change him, Sylvia said. He only smiles at me and talks to me. That's not bad. When you have a pet, you wouldn't want your pet to play up to everyone. You'd be angry about it. Do you want a pet or a boyfriend? David interrupted her and said, Do you even know what you want? Or do you just like him because he looks good? Said Aaron. He could not forget that April always mentioned how pretty Jack was. Ever since he was arrested, April complained at every meal and said she would never go to Japan or France again. Sylvia lowered her head.
Sylvia admitted to herself that Jack was very good-looking. Sometimes she wanted to pinch his cheeks and rub his hair. Last time she even wanted to grab his little butt. She, of course, would never tell anyone about that, or people might see her as a lascivious girl. Aaron shook his head regrettably and said, I'm surprised that your taste hasn't improved at all. Even though you grew up with handsome people like me, Richard, and Jeremy, you still like those kinds of pretty boys. Sylvia responded blandly, saying, I look at you guys every day. Maybe that's the reason why I found Jack delicate and refreshing. After all, you don't look young. Aaron was unhappy. What do you mean that I don't look young? April always praises me for my good looks. She said that I look around 25. Sylvia rolled her eyes. She didn't believe him at all. David said. All right, let's not talk about that.
Since we have achieved an agreement, we will get Sylvia a puppy tomorrow. If after that she still feels like having a puppy-like boy, we'll discuss it further."
Sylvia was speechless. Just what had she done to cause them to misunderstand and think that she was raising a dog? However, they weren't wrong either. She might have the same feelings if she were to keep a puppy. Sylvia went back to the Bennett family mansion with David. She hadn't been back in a long while, so Grandmother was very happy to see her. After chatting with Grandmother for a while, Sylvia returned to her room. Lying on her bed, she suddenly felt that whatever happened in Paris was so far away. However, Paris's time was behind. It must still be morning there. Sylvia sat up and opened her suitcase. A white piece of paper fell out. She wondered why her suitcase would have such a thing in it and thought it was a piece of trash. She absently opened it to take a look before throwing it away, only to see "Syl" written at the top. She took a closer look and realized that it was a love letter. The handwriting was very familiar as she frequently saw Jack write like this. She held her breath and read it line by line. "Syl, please allow me to call you as such. I've always wanted to call you this way, but I was afraid that you would not like it. I like you. I like you very much. If you ask me how I describe this like, I won't know how to. I've never fallen for anyone before. But I once liked a cat when I was 8. After it passed away from illness, I was sad for a long time. I even cried. I imagine that I like you just like how I like that cat. Mr. Maxwell said that since you broke up with your ex-boyfriend, he must not have treated you well. I imagine, if you are with me, I will never mistreat you. I like to follow you. I like to watch you smile. I like to watch you. I like you patting my head. I like you caressing my cheeks." It ended abruptly, but Sylvia had a feeling that it wasn't completed. Was this the love letter he wrote? The love letter that had been on his mind? Sylvia felt like laughing. He compared her to a cat he had in the past. He really couldn't write love letters. Luckily, she knew what kind of person he was. She was rather touched. Perhaps there wouldn't be anyone silly enough to write her a love letter again. Sylvia folded the letter and contemplated for a while before she finally called Mr. Maxwell. "Mr. Maxwell, are you the one who put the love letter in my suitcase?" "Yes, but Mr. Jack wrote it, although it is not finished. I found it in his suitcase after he was taken away." Mr. Maxwell smiled. "Although I know that it is probably impossible between the two of you, that is Mr. Jack's first love letter. I still wanted to deliver it to the intended recipient." "Thank you," Sylvia said with a heavy heart. "What do you intend to do today?" "The priority is to get Mr. Jack out. The authorities are already putting pressure on this side. We will never admit to plagiarizing, let alone defaming Mr. Oda. We will file a counter lawsuit against him, although the case will drag on for even longer," Mr. Maxwell said. "That is good to hear," Sylvia breathed a sigh of relief. "If you meet Mr. Jack, pass my regards." "I will." After hanging up the phone, Sylvia walked to the window. She couldn't do anything now. She should just focus on being a good bridesmaid. Aaron returned to the Bennett mansion. The soulful sound of the piano tune reverberated in the bedroom. April was holding her belly with one hand. "You're back at just the right time. Your son gets extremely excited once he hears music." Since knowing that the baby was a boy, Aaron lost his excitement. He walked over and touched her belly. Right at that moment, the baby kicked. "This kid likes music just like me," Aaron argued, saying, "I listened to music back in my mother's womb." April didn't know what to say. "And you still remember that?" she thought. Amazing. At that moment, Aaron's phone rang. He glanced at the number, then answered the call. It's up to you. Get an adorable one. Corgi? Okay. That boy looks a little like a corgi." As he ended the call, April asked him, "Are you getting a corgi?" "No, it's for Sylvia." Aaron leaned on the back of the couch, rubbing April's belly with one hand. Why are you getting Sylvia a dog? Who's that boy? April was very curious. Jack. Aaron sighed helplessly. Sylvia said that Jack is like a puppy. She intended to keep Jack, but to change her mind, I decided to get her a corgi. Don't you think that Jack looks like a corgi? I think you look more like a corgi, April said in her head. A corgi is lovely. Can you get me one after I give birth to the baby? April blinked, looking at Aaron. Aaron glanced at her and said, Only lonely single women have dogs. You have a husband and a child. Why do you want a dog? Have you thought about how Sylvia might feel when you say that? April responded silently again. She wants to keep Jack, meaning that he is adorable in her eyes. Maybe she just wants to rub him and pet him. April tried to persuade Aaron. You don't have the same feelings toward him, do you? Aaron turned and looked at her in an alert manner. I don't. April hurriedly shook her head and said, I just think that Sylvia likes him. I talk to her via instant message sometimes. She always praises Jack for how great he is at science. She hardly ever praises people like that, except for Jeremy. Aaron stayed silent for a short while, then said, About that, I think she's right. To be honest, I admire him myself. But there are some things you don't understand. Have you ever thought that if he's only doing regular science projects, why would the government send police officers to protect him? Why did he get arrested in Paris? I'm afraid that Sylvia might get hurt if she decides to be with him. April was stunned. She didn't say anything. A person like her couldn't possibly understand things like that. All right, Sylvia will eventually make the decision herself. Now the most important thing for you is that we will get married in just a few days. Aaron lowered his head, scratched her nose, and then held her in his arms and said, We'll get the marriage certificate tomorrow. The wedding was in 3 days. Tomorrow? April struggled a bit. So I'll become a married woman after tonight? I haven't had any good fun yet. Good fun? Aaron gave a wicked smile, then abruptly scooped her up, heading toward the bed. You're right. We should have some good fun. The baby is in a stable condition, so we can... April didn't see that coming. She hurriedly dodged his kiss, then said with red cheeks, This is not what I'm talking about. Don't guys have bachelor parties? I have no interest in a party with a bunch of guys. I'd rather stay at home with you. Aaron lay down by her side and continued saying, Except for being jealous of me, what else can they possibly do? April was touched. The two of them spent every day together, yet he wasn't sick of it at all. But, Aaron, if you spend time with me, you will lose friends. If I lose them, then so be it. I don't have many friends to begin with. Aaron said indifferently and kissed her. April didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had no idea what to say. Things like friends are all transient. I only need you. Aaron's hands were already peeling away April's clothes, making her tingle all over. She could not hold a proper conversation with him anymore. April was 6 months pregnant, so he didn't dare to be too rough. Unlike the past, he could only embrace her while they were lying on their sides. Their bodies moved rhythmically while their faces rubbed against each other. However, his stamina was too much for her. April was already exhausted and drenched in sweat, but it wasn't enough. In the end, he could only take a cold shower by himself. After, he buried his face into her neck and grumbled, Blame it all on that little rascal. I'm turning into a monk because of him. April didn't hold back and rolled her eyes. Aren't you taking advantage of me every day? Monks don't have it as good as you. I only tasted the appetizer, Aaron said slowly, while you got the main course and are satisfied completely. April was awkward. Since becoming pregnant, she had become more sensitive. He could do anything and she would still be satisfied. Let's sleep. Aren't we getting our marriage certificate tomorrow? You are agreeing? Aaron's eyes lit up. When have I not? April pulled the blankets up higher to hide her reddened cheeks. Perhaps because she was thinking about registering their marriage tomorrow. Her heart was a mix of emotions and she lost sleep. Aaron lost sleep too. The next day, he woke up and dressed at 6 a.m. He bumped into Kenneth on his way out.
"You got up early today?"
Kenneth was surprised.
"Yes, I'm going to register my marriage with April today. I was too excited and couldn't sleep."
Aaron couldn't hold back the smile on his face. Kenneth was momentarily stunned. He was partly happy for them, but also sad. The woman he had raised was about to be handed over to someone else. However, this was going to happen sooner or later.
"When I got my marriage certificate with April's mother, I was also so excited that I didn't sleep the whole night."
Kenneth smiled bitterly.
"All right, I'll stop bothering you. I'm going to get breakfast for Melissa." "Dad, you can occasionally slack off a little."
Aaron thought it wasn't easy for Kenneth to do that every day. Since arriving, he had been going to Melissa from morning to night.
"No, this kind of thing cannot be put off for even a day."
Kenneth waved his hand.
"Although Melissa hasn't forgiven me despite me doing this every day, she keeps this in her heart. If I slack off for a few days, then everything that I've done would be for nothing. Anyways, when you really like someone, you feel that doing something for them is also a type of happiness. Oh, right. The household register is in the drawer in my room. You guys can take it yourself."
Kenneth left. Aaron started to admire Kenneth. From his perspective, Kenneth and Melissa would reconcile sooner or later. The two of them still had feelings for each other, unlike his own parents. Aaron woke April up at 7 a.m. By then, Aaron had already prepared both of their household registers.
"Hurry up and eat breakfast. After that, we can go register our marriage."
"It's all right if we don't hurry. It's not as if the Civil Affairs Bureau would move away." April was upset. She didn't sleep well last night, so she wanted to sleep in today.
"But I want you to become my wife sooner,"
Aaron said without hesitating. April's heart was immediately melted with happiness. After breakfast, Aaron drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau. At the sight of the bureau, April sighed. "So, it's here. It's not far away from my school. I never thought that I'd marry someone in this city, so I never paid attention to this place."
"Did you want to marry someone back in Lukesville?"
Aaron wasn't happy thinking about that.
"Shouldn't you have started paying attention to the Civil and Affair Bureau the first time you met me?"
April rolled her eyes and said, "Don't even mention that to me. Recalling how awful you treated me before, I don't want to go in the bureau with you anymore."
"April, I'm sorry. I was injured and I was in a bad mood. You need to understand me."
Aaron worried that she might change her mind, so he hurriedly carried her out of the car. They prepared the photo that was required for the marriage certificate, and the process seemed simple. As the certificate was stamped, April was overwhelmed with a complicated feeling. From that day on, she and Aaron were a legal couple. She must be determined to tolerate his narcissism for the rest of her life. "Aaron, we—"
"Good girl, call me husband."
Aaron put the marriage certificate before her eyes. April paused briefly, then continued. "Husband, we—"
"Call me that again."
Aaron enjoyed it so much. It felt even better than being flattered. "Can you at least let me finish? It's not like I've never called you that before."
"That was totally different."
Aaron disagreed. "Yet you were still very happy to hear that," thought April. "I just saw people downstairs selling a kind of little box for the marriage certificate. Those are pretty cute. Should we get one?" April laughed.
"No need. I brought one,"
Aaron said, then took a box out from his trouser pocket. The box was made of pure gold, embossed with the words April and Aaron with a huge happily married in the middle. April was shocked. The middle-aged female staff member who just helped them with the certificate was stunned as well. She had helped many couples become married, but never saw a gold box like that.
"Young man, how much did that cost?"
she asked.
"Not much, less than 100,000.
Aaron smiled.
"Gold is cheap these days. You can customize a big gold box like this with such little money."
The female staff member didn't even know what to say. Was gold cheap? Was it? As an ordinary office worker, she honestly couldn't understand. April buried her forehead in her palms and said, "Did you have to spend so much money on a box for the marriage certificate? Am I not in charge of your money? Where did you get the money?" "Dumbo, how can you control my money?" Aaron gave her an extremely proud glance and said, "I felt that it was a little too cheap. This marriage certificate is priceless, seriously. It's more precious than anything, so I want to keep it in the best box ever. I was going to customize a rosewood box, but then I thought you value money very much, so you might prefer the lowlier stuff like gold." At first, April was touched. He said their marriage certificate was priceless. How touching was that? But soon she clenched her teeth and said, "I'm sorry you had to marry such a lowly person like me." "Are you angry?" "So pettish." Aaron gave her an affectionate glance, then carefully put the marriage certificate into the box and said, "I'll be keeping this in case you want to leave me. After all, you always attract a lot of suitors." When had she ever seduced a guy? April pouted and asked, "Shouldn't you let me have a good look at our marriage certificate?" Aaron could only take it out again and pass it to her. April opened it. It was quite simple. There was one photo and a few lines of words. Just like that, two people were forever bound together. "What a beautiful couple," Aaron said. April noticed the registration woman giving them strange looks. She quickly pulled Aaron out. After getting onto the car, Aaron took a photo of the marriage certificate with his phone and posted onto his social media stories with the caption, "We are married." April looked at the post. They soon received many people's well wishes. She felt rather blessed. After she liked Aaron's post, she quickly reposted the two photos with the caption, "My Mr. Bennett and I have finally tied the knot." Aaron curved his lips. He turned around and kissed her cheeks. Next, he took out a small gift box from the storage compartment and said, "For you." "You got me a present?" April raised her brows. She was surprised. Her Mr. Bennett was becoming more romantic. "Yes, I must give my wife a present the day that we get married." Aaron nudged his chin, indicating for her to open it. April lowered her head to open the box. Inside was a retro bracelet. It was a tribal style and beautifully crafted. There was a small locket and a red agate on the chain. It looked exceptionally elegant. He used to always give her diamonds. It was rare that this time he gave her an agate bracelet. April thought he was rather creative. "I like this very much, but isn't it a little big?" she asked as she doubtfully extended her wrist. "It's not too big." Aaron's thin lips curved slightly as he said, "I felt your ankle. It's just right for your foot." April lowered her head to look at the chain. Her face was full of questions. "This is an anklet?" "Now that we're married, I must use an anklet to chain your feet. You can't run away from me anymore." Aaron grabbed the chain and commanded, "Give me your foot." April was speechless. She finally understood that he had ulterior motives in giving her a gift. This was only the first day of marriage, yet he was already chaining her feet. He was ruthless. "What are you in a daze for?" Aaron asked. "Hurry." April could only reluctantly raise her foot and extend it toward him. It was still summer, so she was wearing a pair of white canvas shoes and ankle-length trousers. With the anklet on, the red agate contrasted against the fairness of her skin, giving her the air of an exotic beauty. Aaron seemed very happy. He kissed the agate on her ankle. April felt embarrassed. "It's very dirty." It was usually all right for him to kiss after she had showered at home, but now they were outside and had walked. There could be dust. "It's not dirty. I like it." Aaron gently put her feet down. "I'll treat you to steak for lunch." The two of them spent the day, which would eventually become their anniversary, together. They finally returned to the villa late that night. Sylvia was lazily lying on their sofa eating snacks. On her chest was a corgi puppy. With its ears pointed up high, it looked extremely adorable. "It's so cute!" April's heart softened immensely while looking at it. She stretched her hands out to hug it. "Don't touch it!" Erin pulled her back. You're pregnant. But it's so cute. April's heart was melting. It is quite cute, Sylvia said as she patted the puppy, showering it with love. Erin looked at her face with satisfaction. He sat by her side, crossed his legs, and said, You've already forgotten about Jack, haven't you? You're all about this dog now. Sylvia rolled her eyes and responded with, Can a dog do science projects? Do you really think a dog can replace a person? Erin didn't look at her but lowered his head to pet the little corgi. Good puppy. You look like Jack. Sylvia didn't know what to say, but felt she wanted to kick him in his face. April had gotten used to Erin's awful attitude long ago. Sylvia, have you named the little corgi yet? She asked. Yeah, Jackie. Sylvia smilingly pinched the dog's ear. April stayed silent. You feel that Jack looks like a corgi too, right? Otherwise, why would you name the dog after him? She thought. I don't think that's good. April shared her opinion. If you two really got together, you'd be calling both him and dog Jackie. That'd be complicated. How can a grown man be called Jackie? Ew, Erin said coldly. Richard called you Ronnie. I thought that means tall and pretty, April said, arguing without mercy. Immediately, Erin wore a sour face. Sylvia blinked, nodded, and said, You're probably right. I'm going to call the dog Jackie. April glanced at her, feeling confused. Did the dog have to be named after Jack? It seemed that he was pretty important to Sylvia. Before dinner, Erin received a phone call, then went to his study room. April watched him leave, then lowered her voice and asked Sylvia, How exactly do you feel about Jack? Sylvia shook her head, then responded with, April, did you ever feel that my brother is adorable? Did you ever want to rub his hair and pinch his cheeks? April stayed silent for a few seconds, then said, Sometimes I want to pull his hair, squeeze his ears, and whip him. Just like my mother, Sylvia said. April sighed. They're different, so we all feel differently about them. After all, Mr. Jack is so quiet and adorable. If your brother was 1% as adorable as him, I'd hold him in my arms and take care of him with all my heart. Sylvia thought for a moment, then agreed with April. During the next couple of days, Sylvia paid attention to the news about Jack. She heard that his family had been asked for bail again. Jack denied he plagiarized Oda's work and that he slandered him. A few foreign physicists had stated that Jack's performance at the conference was better than Mr. Oda's, and he had no reason to steal Oda's work. Also, the Kipling family had provided new evidence. The case had caused widespread concern, and people grew strong repulsion toward Japan and France. Sylvia didn't go to the police station for a few days. Since Erin was going to get married, she took a few days off. Soon, it was October 2nd. That night, April slept at Melissa's house. According to tradition, she was expected to spend the night before her wedding away from the groom. Erin walked her to her mother's house and said, Good girl. Sleep early. I'll come pick you up tomorrow. You don't need to be in a rush, said Melissa. We live in the same neighborhood. There's only one house between us. It'll only take you about 10 minutes to walk here. Hearing that, the corners of April's mouth twitched slightly. Melissa was right. Her house and Erin's were close to each other. Erin suggested she spend the night in her apartment, but she refused because the apartment was too far away. She needed to get up early the next morning to do her makeup, and she wanted to get more sleep. Although Melissa had been living closer to April for a while now, she rarely spent the night because Erin was always close by. Melissa renovated April's room very nicely and even bought her new clothes. As a mother, she was trying her best to make it up to April. April and Kenneth arrived together.
Mel, I'll just sleep in the guest room downstairs.
Melissa rolled her eyes at him. Did anyone say you could sleep here? Kenneth pretended to be put on the spot.
Our daughter is getting married tomorrow, and I can't possibly stay in Erin's house. When the time comes for him to fetch the bride, it will be more convenient if both of her parents are here. Jeffrey, what do you think?
I don't know. It's up to you.
Jeffrey didn't even look up from his phone. "Mom, let's just have Dad sleep in the guest room," April persuaded. "There isn't a hotel around here either, so it's too inconvenient for Dad to stay elsewhere. He might not be able to make it back here on time tomorrow."
"Yes, that's right."
Kenneth hurriedly nodded his head. Before Melissa could say anything, he quickly rolled up his sleeves.
"I'll make dinner for all of you today. Your mom is a successful career woman now. She earns more than me and is younger than me, so I can't win against her in anything. I can only mooch off your mom for being hardworking."
April snorted. After spending some time with Aaron, her dad had become more and more shameless. April stole a glance at Melissa and saw a glint of amusement from her eyes before she suppressed it. Her heart warmed slightly. It looked like there were still high hopes for her parents to reconcile. Kenneth had always been good at cooking. Now he was getting better every day. The four of them rarely ate dinner as a family, so April felt very blessed. She never imagined she could have a complete family. After dinner, Jeffrey holed himself up in the kitchen doing the dishes. When April walked over and saw his expressionless, handsome face, she coughed slightly. "Winnie is my bridesmaid. She won't be able to come over and accompany me in time if she sets off tomorrow morning, so I invited her to stay over at our house tonight. Can you change your attitude toward her? I know that you still mind what happened the last time. I guarantee that she didn't tell me intentionally. It was me who suspected that you were gay, and to prove that you weren't, she—"
"All right, you can stop talking. I'll stay in my room later and not come out."
Jeffrey placed the bowl into the disinfection cabinet and turned around to leave. April's head started to ache. At 9 p.m., Kenneth went to the door to fetch Winnie. She had just finished filming for a television show and rushed over with her suitcase. Looking travel-worn, April invited her to sleep in her room. The two of them hadn't chatted while lying on the bed for a long time. After showering, Winnie stared at the sophisticated and elegant wedding dress that April hung in the dressing room until she was in a trance. Once upon a time, she had also thought of marrying Ben in a white dress. "What's wrong? You seem to have something on your mind today," April joked. "Can it be because I'm marrying and you can't bear me leaving?" "I definitely can't bear you leaving. I'll be alone in the apartment in the future," Winnie sighed. "After this year, I'll move to a place the company arranges." "Keep working hard and you'll become the friend that I'm the proudest of." April patted her shoulder. Winnie grew silent. "The company arranged for me to participate in a large concert next week. Ben will be going too." April was stunned. "So you're in a bad mood because of this?" Winnie nodded. "After breaking up, I've imagined countless scenarios of us meeting, but I never expected it to be so soon. You both work in music, and he's currently focusing on his career. You'll see each other sooner or later." April sighed. "Did he contact you after breaking up?" "Occasionally." Winnie was upset. "I became a singer because of him, but in the end, we went our separate ways. I feel sad when I see him." "Don't you like singing at all?" April asked her. "Don't you feel happy when your songs are heard from every street and alley?" Winnie paused. April was right. She liked singing, but never thought she'd be living on singing alone. It didn't feel bad, though. They chatted until midnight. The next morning, the makeup artist arrived at 7 for April and Winnie. Winnie's makeup wasn't as complicated as the bride's, so she was done quickly. As she came out of the room, Melissa turned to the kitchen and said, "Jeffrey, Winnie is up too. Get her some toast." "Auntie Mel, there's no need to—" Winnie gave a start. She didn't want the toast that Jeffrey made. "Your Uncle Ken was going to make breakfast, but we found that we needed a few things, so we went shopping for some," said Melissa. "Jeffrey's toasts are great. I'm sure that once you've tasted them, you'll want more." Winnie was afraid Jeffrey might put poison in her food. 10 minutes later, Jeffrey came out of the kitchen with 4 plates of toast. Melissa fervidly pushed one plate to Winnie and said, "Winnie, come on and try." Under Jeffrey's cold glare, Winnie took over the plate, stirred them, and tried some. It tasted good. It was dressed with butter and cheese, as good as any restaurant. It's good, isn't it? Melissa looked at her smilingly. Jeffrey could heat food by himself by 4 years old and learn how to cook at 6. He also washed my clothes. Mom, can you please focus on the food? Jeffrey interrupted coldly. Melissa rolled her eyes and moved closer to Winnie and said, Winnie, maybe you can introduce him to some young girls from your department, if you know any. He always stays at home and it makes me worry. Winnie was eating the toast. Seeing Jeffrey's face turn darker and darker, she laughed. Auntie Mel, you don't need to worry. Jeffrey is the most popular boy in our school now. Even Ryan isn't as popular as he is. Besides, an adorable girl from the acting department is going after him. She's so nice to him that she often brings him food. Winnie, stop making up stories. Before Jeffrey finished his warning, Melissa knocked his head with chopsticks and said, So rude! Call your sister. She's not my sister, Jeffrey said through clenched teeth. She is. She is 3 years older than you, and she is your biological sister's best friend, Melissa said to him. Have you heard what I said? I'm done. Jeffrey stood up and left. He would never call her sister. He's short-tempered, Melissa said to Winnie smilingly. Winnie, please don't mind. Oh, how does that girl look? How old is she? Auntie Mel, I think she'll be here today, Winnie said. After finishing, Winnie brought her plate into the kitchen. Suddenly, a frosty voice was heard from behind the bar. Who told you to gossip with my mom? Hearing his voice, Winnie hurriedly turned around. He was moving forward at that moment, and as a result, her plate bumped into his waist. The leftovers spilled all over him. He was a groomsman today, in gray pants and a white shirt. When the soup spilled all over him, a large part was stained. What made Jeffrey's expression turn even darker was that the sauce dripped down along his waist toward the middle of his legs. Winnie was at a loss at what to do. She bit her lip and hurriedly backed away while holding the bowl. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Do you think I should believe you? Jeffrey spit out each word forcefully. If it wasn't on purpose, why did it just spill on his waist and make that area wet? Luckily, the noodles were already finished. If the soup had been hot, he might have been burned. He stared at Winnie till her head moved back. She said innocently, Who asked you to pop up behind me out of nowhere and so close to me? You surprised me, that's why. Excuse me? I don't believe you at all. Jeffrey's handsome but cold face was taut with tension. This was my groomsman outfit for today, and you've ruined it. What should I do now? There is 1 more hour before the groom is coming over to fetch the bride. Winnie felt awkward. She was also there when they tried on the groomsmen outfits, and she knew that this suit was extremely expensive. However, that was not the priority here. The 2 groomsmen were decided since before, and Aaron was extremely particular about every detail in the wedding. If he were to be missing 1 groomsman, he would be extremely unhappy. Her gaze landed on his waist as the white shirt was plastered against it. He had such toned lines. She couldn't tell before. Below, the gray-colored pants also exposed the ridges of his groin after being splashed. What are you looking at? Jeffrey glared at her warningly while hiding his vital body part with his hand. Winnie. She wanted to say, You've stood erect in front of me before. What's there to hide? Such a hypocrite. He looked cool from the outside but was a pervert on the inside. All right, go take your pants off. I'll wash them for you and blow-dry them using a hairdryer, Winnie said. Jeffrey's eyes narrowed. Are you sure you won't be making other moves? Are you paranoid? Winnie gritted her teeth. I won't. Jeffrey hesitated for a few seconds before he started to unbutton his shirt. Although he was still young, he was toned in all the right places. Winnie awkwardly looked away. Jeffrey threw his shirt on her and walked out topless. Melissa walked over and was surprised. Why did you take your shirt off? Aaron is coming soon. Ask her. Jeffrey glanced at Winnie coldly. Winnie felt very apologetic. His words made it seem as though she was a troublemaker. I accidentally spilled food on him, which dirtied his clothes. I told him I'd wash and dry them for him. Melissa glared at her son. It's not anything big. Just let him wash them himself. He has hands and feet. She then directed her comments at Jeffrey, saying, You must be amicable when interacting with an elder sister. Do you understand? No, I don't. Jeffrey said the words coldly. I only know that people must always pay for their actions. Come to my room to get the pants in 2 minutes. He walked straight into the bedroom when he was done talking. Melissa felt embarrassed for her son. What girl would be able to stand him in the future? Winnie, don't mind him. He didn't used to be this annoying. Maybe it's because April's getting married today and he feels as if someone is stealing away his sister. So he's in a bad mood. Melissa apologized. Why don't you pass it to me? I'll do it. No, it's all right. You're busy too. I'll be fine. Winnie waved her hands. Melissa was busy, so she let them do what they wanted. 2 minutes later, Winnie walked to Jeffrey's door. Before she knocked on the door, it opened, and Jeffrey's trousers were thrown into her hands. Jeffrey was in pajama pants with his upper body bare. Standing by the door, he said to her, Go and wash them. The hairdryer's in the bathroom cabinet. Dry them and then come to my room to get them steamed. Winnie felt lucky she didn't have brothers. Nowadays, brothers could be arrogant. Winnie considered herself unlucky. She brought his clothes to the bathroom to wash them. It was a little tricky to wash the oil off the fabric. She had to use a little dishwashing liquid on them. After drying the clothes with the hairdryer, she brought them to Jeffrey's room. He was leaning on the headboard, looking at his laptop. He didn't even raise his head to look at Winnie when she came in. Everybody was busy, yet he still had his time and energy to spend with his computer.